Chapter 2663. They led the decaying spirit energy into the depths of the hole. None of the great Tao spirits that appeared before them could resist the invasion of the decaying spirit energy. If they couldn't escape into their vitality spirit energy, they would die. The people of the Heavenly Wind Chu clan and the Flying Star Lien clan worked together and easily killed them in the decaying spiritual qi. However, they had also consumed a lot of energy. Without the vitality spirit energy to replenish their strength, they couldn't use it. They could only rely on the spirit flowers and spirit herbs they had picked from outside to replenish their strength. Among them, Chu Xiaofan, Guifeng, and the others were the most eye-catching. The top disciples naturally didn't lack spirit flowers and spirit herbs, and so did Xing Chen and the others. But for the ordinary disciples below, it was barely satisfactory. Some of them only had a few pitiful stalks of spirit flowers and spirit herbs. However, Chu Xiaofan and the others were different. He and the other mercenaries took out a large number of spirit flowers and spirit herbs and poured them into their mouths without hesitation as soon as their strength was depleted. The Tianfeng Chu clan's ordinary disciples and the Flying Star Lien clan's people were stunned. They were all very careful and calculated the amount of spirit energy they absorbed from the spirit flowers and spirit herbs. They didn't dare to pour the spirit energy into their mouths until their strength was almost depleted. In contrast, Chu Xiaofan and the others' actions were simply insane. Everyone deeply suspected that there was a treasure trove in the abandoned continent that was full of spirit flowers and spirit herbs and wasn't guarded by high-level magical beasts. Chu Xiaofan and the others happened to have found such a treasure trove. Otherwise, how could they explain their crazy behavior? They didn't treat the spirit flowers and spirit herbs as spirit flowers and spirit herbs at all. One had to know that if they consumed the spirit flowers and spirit herbs too quickly, Chu Xiaofan and the others might not be able to fight by the time they reached the heart of the continent. There was no way they didn't know this, right? Everyone was dumbfounded. Chu Jingyi originally wanted to remind Chu Xiaofan and the others. However, he had only taken a step forward and before he could speak, he heard Chu Xiaofan say, "Oh, cousin, do you have a lot of spirit flowers and spirit herbs? I still have a lot here. Feel free to use them." As he spoke, he took out a bunch of spirit herbs and stuffed them into Chu Jingyi's hands. These spiritual grasses were naturally collected by Chu Xiaofan and Luo Qingtong when they were setting up camp. They had stayed in the abandoned continent for so many days. In addition to the first few days, they needed to work on their cooperation. For the next few days, they cleared the spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs nearby at a terrifying speed. Their madness could almost be described as plucking feathers from wild geese. The group had accumulated a lot of spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs. If he didn't use it now, when would he use it? One had to know that once one's strength was depleted, it would be very easy for one to be attacked and in danger if one did not replenish it in time. Those great Tao spirits were not completely killed. Instead, they disappeared. Who knew if they would pounce on them and kill them? Therefore, even though Chu Xiaofan cherished the spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs in his possession very much, he did not hesitate to use them. After all, his life was more important. As for Chu Jingyi, he had a very good relationship with him and the latter had always protected him. Chapter 2664. Chu Jingyi held the spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs with a dazed and complicated expression. Was he being taken care of by his little cousin who had been protecting him all this time? For some inexplicable reason, he felt as if his son had just grown up, didn't he? However, her little cousin had too many spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs. Chu Jingyi watched Chu Xiaofan take out a large number of spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs from his storage ring and couldn't help but ask, "Little cousin, where did you get so many spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs?" Could it be that it was really as they thought? That they had found a treasured land with an abundance of spiritual flowers and spiritual grasses? However, just as he was thinking this, he heard Chu Xiaofan say, "Of course it was Luo Shaoqi who helped us get it." Her observation skills are very good. Cousin, you don't know how great it was to deal with those magical beasts with her. Our spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs were so plentiful that my hands went numb. Chu Xiaofan said with a proud face. He was secretly glad that he had chosen the Red Flame mercenary group. If not for this, Luo Qingtong wouldn't have been in his team. How could he have so many spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs for him to use? Looking at the envious and jealous gazes of the people around him, Chu Xiaofan couldn't help but say his words loudly. Especially when facing Chu Yucheng and the others, he wanted them to hear him. So that they would know what they had missed. Since they dared to offend Luo Shaoqi, they deserved to be careful later. Chu Yucheng and the others' faces turned green when they heard this. Chu Yufei, and the others were fine. They had gone to kill those 1,000 silkworms with Chu Xiaofeng and the others. Although they hadn't directly taken action, they had seen how Luo Qingtong dealt with those 1,000 silkworms. If Luo Qingtong always had such an ability, then it was no wonder she helped Chu Xiaofeng and the others get so many spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs. After all, the spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs they had snatched from Luo Qingtong and the others were obtained from the 1,000 silkworms' territory. Although those were beast-luring grass, it also proved that Luo Qingtong had the opportunity and ability to obtain the same amount of spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs. As for Chu Yucheng, Chu Hanyu, and the others, their hearts were in a strange state. When they saw Chu Xiaofeng and the others using the spirit flowers and spirit herbs with all their might, they were secretly mocking them for their unrestrained usage. Once they reached the heart of the continent, they would be in for a miserable time. However, who would have thought that Chu Xiaofeng and the others would have so many spiritual flowers and herbs on them? They might even have more than they had on them. This made them feel like they had been slapped in the face. After all, who were Chu Xiaofeng and the others? They were just ordinary disciples of the Tianfeng Chu clan, and even some mercenaries, but they had more spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs than the top disciples of the Tianfeng clan. Wouldn't they be suppressed by them? Chu Yucheng and the others had never felt so stifled before. They were proud of the fact that their cultivation resources were above everyone else's. At this moment, this capital was pressed down by Luo Qingtong. There was nothing more infuriating than this. However, because of Luo Qingtong's existence, they couldn't make Gui Feng and the others hand over their spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs. Otherwise, even if they couldn't touch Chu Xiaofeng's spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs, they could snatch Gui Feng's spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs. What could these mercenaries do to them? Chapter 2665. But now, they could only grit their teeth and watch as Gui Feng and the others wantonly used those spirit flowers and herbs, while they couldn't even get a single strand of hair. How infuriating! Chu Yucheng gnashed his teeth inwardly. If he'd known earlier that this Luo Shaoqi was so useful and strange, he would have long ago brought her to his side. He would have squeezed her dry, then killed her. That way, he wouldn't have landed himself in such an embarrassing situation. At that time, she might not have the protection of that white jade masked man and Chu Lingfeng. Chu Yucheng was filled with resentment as he thought of this. He couldn't vent his anger on Luo Qingtong, so he turned to curse Chu and Chu Yufei, blaming them for not warning him of Luo Qingtong's power. Why didn't you tell me that she had the ability to obtain such spirit flowers and herbs? His expression was cold and harsh, and he didn't listen to Chu and Chu Yufei's explanations at all. He only wanted to teach them a lesson. He completely vented his anger on them. Chu and Chu Yufei hadn't expected that they would be the unlucky ones in the end. Chu Yufei's gentle and charming figure and deep scheming were also useless at this moment. In his anger, Chu Yucheng couldn't be bothered to listen to her pretentious words. This was the fate of those who flaunted their beauty and were full of schemes. When a man was happy, he would treat you like a plaything and tease you whenever he wanted. When he was unhappy, who did you think you were? If Chu Yufei was the real first young miss of the Chu family, it would have been fine, but she wasn't. Chu Yucheng couldn't be bothered to give her any face. If it weren't for the Ninth Elder's faction and by Xing's strength and influence as Madame Xing, Chu Yucheng would have thrown her out of the group. Chu Yucheng and the others were causing a ruckus, but Luo Qingtong didn't notice at all. Her attention was completely focused on the depths of the cave in front of her. Perhaps it was because they were getting closer and closer to the depths, but the fog inside was getting thicker and thicker. The vitality and spiritual energy was becoming denser and denser. Luo Qingtong's bloodshot eyes made it difficult for her to see the scene inside. After all, it was the heart of the continent, which was filled with the power of the Great Tao. Currently, Luo Qingtong's blood-red eyes were still unable to see through it. Especially when they were so far apart. However, as everyone's journey progressed, Luo Qingtong felt a strong sense of danger in her heart. Everyone, be careful. Just as the sense of danger reached its peak, Luo Qingtong's blood-red eyes suddenly saw a huge black figure leaping out from the depths of the hole in front of them and rushing towards them. Humph, you're just exaggerating. Chu Yucheng's heart was filled with displeasure as he lectured Chu Ku, and the others. When he heard Luo Qingtong's sudden shout, he jumped in fright. He then raised his head and looked into the depths of the cave. It was filled with smoke and there was no movement at all. He immediately snorted with disdain. However, as soon as he said this, there was a swoosh and a furious roar. In an instant, huge figures leaped out from the depths of the smoke and fog. The extremely dense vitality and spiritual energy violently washed over them. Then, as these figures leapt out, it suddenly scattered in all directions, revealing a huge cave in front of them. Chapter 2666. The Heart of the Continent. At the top of the mountain in the huge cave, there was a huge ball of light that was pulsating violently as if it was alive. Countless mountains, rivers, forests, and trees flashed quietly in it. Many of the people present were very familiar with these scenes. It was not because of anything else, but because it was the terrain of the abandoned continent. What was flashing in this ball of light was the scene of the abandoned continent. This was the heart of the continent hidden deep in the ground of the abandoned continent. Everyone looked at the scene in front of them in shock. They saw that the huge cave was a natural underground cave. Because it was separated from the ground, it had evolved into a different ecology and appearance. Trees, mountains, rivers, and everything else was there. When they looked up, they couldn't see the top at all. They didn't know how deep they were underground. The only thing they could be sure of was that they had reached the heart of the continent. While everyone's eyes were filled with surprise and shock, the roar of beasts and the sound of wind came from all directions. Everyone was shocked to realize that there was a terrible danger in front of them along with the cave. Roar. An extremely arrogant roar sounded, with a natural pressure of the great path. It was almost deafening as it rushed toward the crowd. In the next second, a guard at LV6 of the human martial realm who was standing on the periphery was pushed to the ground by an extremely huge figure. Then, in an instant, his body was torn into pieces by an irresistible force. Ah! A shrill scream rang out. He had broken through to the 6th level of the mortal Qi layer and was responsible for the safety of the Chu clan. He was much stronger than an ordinary cultivator of the 6th level of the mortal Qi layer. However, just like that, he had been killed by a pair of gigantic claws. Not only that, but in the next second, his body was put into a huge mouth. Then, there was a crunching sound that made people's teeth ache. Countless spit and blood splattered. The air was filled with a strong smell of blood. This guard at LV6 of the human martial realm had died without a complete corpse. Spirit Beast. Looking at the mountainous beast in front of them and sensing the pressure of the great Tao emanating from it, the expressions of the people from the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lien clan instantly darkened. Spiritual beasts were separated from demonic beasts by a single word, and were also separated from demonic beasts by a single word. The meanings they represented were completely different. To put it simply, anything with the word spirit was naturally compatible with the power of the Great Path. They could borrow the power of the Great Path to cultivate on their own. Like humans, they could constantly improve and transform themselves. When a spirit beast cultivated to a high level, it could even possess the same power as a divine beast. However, spirit beasts were rare in this world. Not every demonic beast could comprehend the power of the Great Path and cultivate to transform themselves like humans. This required a certain amount of luck and comprehension of the Great Tao. However, at this moment, there were no less than 10 spiritual beasts in front of everyone. Furthermore, this was because this place was not spacious enough and could barely accommodate 10 spirit beasts. Otherwise, there would be more than 10 of them rushing in. Luo Qingtong could even hear the roars of beasts coming from the cave in front of them. Obviously, the number of spirit beasts here was no less than the Great Path spirits from before. Chapter 2667. Luo Qingtong's eyes were indescribably solemn as she watched the spirit beasts roaring and pouncing towards them. She shouted to everyone, "Quick, let's charge over." The cave here was narrow and wouldn't be of any benefit to them in dealing with those spirit beasts. On the contrary, they had a large number of people and would be easily injured in the process. Their hands and feet would be tied and they would be easily killed by these spirit beasts. Once the spirit beasts cut off their path of retreat, they would be trapped in the hole. In that case, they might as well charge towards the cave where the heart of the continent was located. At least, although there were many spirit beasts there, the place was spacious enough. They could gather together and hold them off for a while. After all, these spirit beasts were only at the human martial realm, just like the great Tao spirits from before. Otherwise, Luo Qingtong and the others wouldn't even have a chance to struggle. However, the appearance of these spirit beasts was just like the great Tao spirits from before. It was extremely inconceivable. Spirit beasts were very rare in this world, and it would be amazing if one could appear normally. However, there were so many of them here. Although their strength wasn't very tyrannical, it showed that this place was different from the rest. Thinking about the difference in the energy tide that she saw previously and the various abnormalities in this cave, Luo Qingtong couldn't help but wonder if this had something to do with the strange treasure that she had previously suspected. Was it because of the existence of that strange treasure that these great Tao spirits and spirit beasts appeared in a group? While Luo Qingtong was thinking about this, everyone had already listened to her and rushed towards the cave ahead. Yi Qianxian and the others were at the front. In fact, before she spoke, Yi Qianxian saw the spirit beasts rushing into the cave and immediately led her, Bei Qing, Fengyu, and the others to the entrance of the cave ahead. When he rose, Luo Qingtong's voice sounded, so the others were slower by a beat. Lian Xing and the others reacted quickly as well. Although the appearance of many spirit beasts surprised him, the appearance of the Great Path spirit had given him a base. Therefore, even though he was surprised, he didn't hesitate to deal with it. Almost at the same time as Luo Qingtong's voice rang out, he also ordered the people of the Lian clan of the Flying Star realm to follow Luo Qingtong and the others into the cave ahead. Amongst them, the most chaotic were the people from the Heavenly Wind Chu clan. As soon as Luo Qingtong's voice rang out, Chu Yucheng and the others immediately began to shriek. How can this be? There are more spirit beasts there. Is Luo Xiaoqi trying to get us all killed by making such a decision? So she can monopolize the Tian Luo grass in the heart of the continent? Chu Ku's voice was extremely sharp. Among everyone's voices, her voice was the sharpest and most hysterical. She had just been taught a lesson by Chu Yucheng, so her entire body was brimming with the desire to find trouble with someone and vent her viciousness. However, as soon as she spoke, she was despised by Chu Jingyi and the others. If that's what you think, then don't follow us later. Chapter 2668. Once we're surrounded by them, we'll have no choice but to surrender. These spirit beasts can continuously surround and kill us. Do you have the energy and strength to fight them in a war of attrition? Chu Xiaofeng's voice sounded disdainfully. You're really stupid. No wonder you caused the death of all the people around you. His words instantly poked Chu Ku's sore spot. She immediately flew into a rage and shouted, "Shut up. You're just a dog under Luo Shaoqi's feet. Chu Xiaofeng, you're a descendant of our Tianfeng Chu family. You do whatever Luo Shaoqi says. Don't you have any shame? Even if we'll be exhausted to death by these spirit beasts here, won't it be the same once we enter the cave? There are even more spirit beasts inside." Chu Ku screamed as if she had gone crazy. Chu Xiaofeng looked at her as if he was looking at a lunatic. "I'm too lazy to talk to you. Follow me if you want to. Besides, what's wrong with being a dog? If you had the ability to save our lives with just a word like Luo Shaoqi, I would also be a dog under your feet. Unfortunately, you don't." Chu Xiaofeng said mockingly. He wasn't like Chu Jingyi, who had to worry about his demeanor as a top descendant and couldn't say many things. He just had to say it. He wanted to anger Chu Ku to death. "Oh, right, if you want to say that listening to Luo Shaoqi is like being a dog under her feet, it seems like you guys are too. After all, you listened to her and walked forward, didn't you?" As Chu Xiaofeng said this, he immediately sneered and rushed forward with Chu Jingyi and the others. He couldn't be bothered to pay attention to Chu Ku. The latter's expression changed greatly. When she heard Chu Xiaofeng's last words, she hurriedly looked at Chu Yucheng beside her and said anxiously, "Big brother, don't listen to his nonsense. That's not what I meant. I didn't mean that listening to Luo Shaoqi's words would make you her dog." Chu Ku's words became more and more anxious, and in the end, she was a little incoherent. She had just been taught a lesson by Chu Yucheng, and now was the time to be afraid. Chu Yucheng's face darkened as he looked at his sister, who was incapable of accomplishing anything but good at ruining things. He couldn't help but slap her across the face. "Then what do you mean? Idiot." With just one sentence, he scolded everyone present. Did she have a pig brain? Of all the things she could use to attack Luo Shaoqi, she had to use the fact that Chu Xiaofeng listened to her. Stupid beyond compare. Chu Qiankong and the others also looked at Chu Ku with ice-cold gazes. No one would be happy to be called a dog under Luo Qingtong's feet. To a certain extent, they had listened to Luo Qingtong's words. If you don't have the ability, don't blame others for being stupid. Chu Ku, although there are more spirit beasts in that cave, there are also more places for us to hide and use. Moreover, the heart of the continent is there. Perhaps we can use the heart of the continent to avoid and eliminate these spirit beasts. It's better than being surrounded and killed by these spirit beasts. If you want to throw away your life here, we won't stop you. If you want to be stupid here, we won't stop you either. But don't take us with you. Chapter 2669. After Chu Qiankong said this, he leaped up with Chu Yuanhong and the others towards the entrance of the cave. Hearing his words, Chu Ku's face was filled with unspeakable shame and anger. She was originally very unconvinced, thinking that she had been framed by Chu Xiaofeng and that no one knew her painstaking efforts. Therefore, when she was slapped by Chu Yucheng, she wanted to cry and make a scene. She wanted to let everyone know that she had said the wrong thing for their own good. But now, when Chu Qiankong spoke, she didn't know what to say. All the words were stuck in her throat. Luo Shaoqi was actually right. Then why had she caused such a ruckus for so long? Wasn't that just a clown? Not only had she been beaten by Chu Yucheng, but she had also offended Chu Qiankong and the others. When Chu Ku thought of this, her face turned pale and red. It was extremely unsightly. Chu Tianming and the others also had the same expression. They had just been hooting, saying that Luo Qingtong wanted to kill them. But now, they didn't even dare to fart. As for Chu Yucheng, Chu Hanyu, and the others, their faces were gloomy as they led their own people to follow Chu Qian Kong and the others. They had made them lose face this time, but they couldn't blame anyone else for this. They hadn't seen through Luo Shaoqi's intentions. If they really stayed here and didn't leave, then what awaited them was certain death. They couldn't even escape. Under the pursuit of those spirit beasts, without the help of Luo Qingtong, Chu Qiankong, and the Flying Star Lian family, they wouldn't be able to run far before those spirit beasts caught up to them. How could they dare to stay here any longer? The group rushed towards the entrance of the cave. The 10 spirit beasts that had rushed into the cave saw Luo Qingtong and the others rush towards the cave and immediately rushed to intercept them. If not for this, Chu Yucheng and the others would have been torn to shreds by those spirit beasts countless times over. Boom! Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others worked together to blast away a spirit beast. Because they had already revealed the strength of the 9th level of the mortal martial realm, and they were fighting together, no one doubted that there was anything wrong with them being able to expel a spirit beast so quickly. On the Lian family's side, Lian Xingchen and the other top disciples of the Flying Star Lian family gathered together and used the Lian family's secret amplification technique. Together with the human martial realm experts around them, they also blasted a spirit beast away. Chu Lingfeng's side was the most shocking. His body was surrounded by an extremely powerful and terrifying force. The veins on his body were bulging as if they were about to explode. He hugged a spirit beast that was about to bite them and threw it away with a wave of his hand. Roar! As for the little snowball, it had been obediently staying by his side all this time. But this time, it let out a roar and charged out. With a flick of its fluffy tail, it tangled with another spirit beast that was charging at it. Then, under the other people's attacks, it fiercely bit off the head of the spirit beast. Since then, all 4 spirit beasts had fallen at the hands of Luo Qingtong and the others. With this, the passage leading to the cave was opened. Chapter 2670. When they were in the cave, the scene inside was even more shocking. It was as if this was a world that was no different from the abandoned continent on the surface. The only difference was that one was underground, and the other was on the surface. Perhaps it had sensed the appearance of Luo Qingtong and the others, but the heart of the continent at the top of the mountain jumped even more violently. The mountains and rivers inside were constantly changing and moving. Luo Qingtong looked at the huge jumping mass of light. She didn't know why, but she felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. It was as if she had seen such a scene somewhere before. This sense of familiarity was exactly the same as when Luo Qingtong had seen the tide of power erupt from the heart of the continent. Luo Qingtong had also felt that it was very familiar, but because she couldn't grasp that fleeting feeling in her heart, she didn't think much about it. Now, this strange feeling came again. But before coming to the abandoned continent, Luo Qingtong had never been to any other continent. Not to mention seeing the heart of the continent hidden in the Earth's core. Wait, as Luo Qingtong thought of this, her heart suddenly jumped. She looked at the violently jumping mass of light at the top of the mountain and finally knew where this strange sense of familiarity came from. She had never been to any other continent. But in the true Spill continent, she had seen such a jumping mass of light. Little dumpling? Luo Qingtong exclaimed in her heart. Looking at this jumping mass of light, the more she looked, the more she felt that it was similar to when she had seen the little realm beast before it had hatched. But at that time, that little dumpling had been in an egg-shaped mass of light, and it was indeed an egg. In the end, the little realm beast had hatched. The shape of the heart of the continent was a scattered ball of light, like a cloud. The two gave off completely different feelings. But Luo Qingtong was sure that there must be some connection between the two. Could it be that the mass of light that had hatched the little realm beast was actually the heart of the true Spill continent? As Luo Qingtong was thinking, she suddenly heard a voice in her mind. Of course. The realm beast is the incarnation of the origin. It can transform into an existence of a world. The only place that can hatch it is the heart of the continent that contains the great Tao of the world. Otherwise, where would it hatch from? But that little dumpling from before was also strange. It is reasonable to say that a low-level heart of the continent wouldn't be used as a place to hatch a realm beast. I don't know how it ran in there. As soon as it said this, Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows. This little realm, little Luo Qingtong finally. Master, is it that one day without seeing me feels like 3 years? Luo Qingtong. Luo Qingtongs Luo. The power of the great path was extremely beneficial to it. At this moment, the power in its body had completely recovered. That's right. It said to Luo Qingtong, hurry up and put that little dumpling in the place where the power of the great Tao is the strongest. This will be good for its recovery. That little guy was born in the heart of the continent. It can absorb a lot of the power of the origin from the power of the great Tao. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed. Chapter 2671. Little Pig was stunned by Luo Qingtong's words. If that's the case, then it can recover at least half of its strength. But that also depends on the level of the heart of the continent. Little Pig said. After all, if the level of the heart of the continent is too low, like the true Spill continent, then it's not necessarily the case. One had to know that Xiao Tuanzi had stayed in the land of the fallen immortals for a long time. It had barely accumulated enough strength to be born. It was basically impossible for Xiao Tuanzi to recover all of its strength. Especially when the person Luo Qingtong had summoned almost sucked Xiao Tuanzi dry. That was even more impossible. Luo Qingtong nodded. She told Little Pig about her current location and the abandoned continent. Then, she asked, if that's the case, how much can the heart of the continent help it recover? That's hard to say. Little Pig frowned and said with some hesitation. According to what you said, the heart of the continent shouldn't have any power of the great Tao left. But it strangely gave birth to the Skynet grass, the great Tao spirit, and the spirit of the great Tao. It's certain that there's a treasure that's giving birth to it. Otherwise, it's impossible for such a situation to occur. If that's the case, I'm not sure how much power Xiao Tuanzi can absorb after it goes in. After all, according to the previous decline of the abandoned continent, Xiao Tuanzi shouldn't be able to absorb any power. Luo Qingtong immediately understood what Little Pig was trying to tell her. In other words, how much power Xiao Tuanzi can absorb depends on how much influence that treasure has on the heart of the continent. Luo Qingtong understood Little Pig's meaning. The heart of the continent didn't have any effect on Xiao Tuanzi. But because of that possible treasure, the heart of the continent might be useful for Xiao Tuanzi's recovery, but he wasn't sure if it would be effective or how effective it would be. This was in line with Luo Qingtong's previous conjecture. When she saw the eruption of power from the heart of the continent, she had already noticed that the situation here was abnormal. From the looks of it, that was indeed the case. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes and quickly analyzed the current situation. But then, there was a problem. Did the Lian family of the Flying Star Planet and the Tianfeng Chu family, as the people who discovered the Tianluo grass here, know anything about the situation here? If they knew, the team they sent out was made up of the younger generation of the family. Moreover, he was a highly valued junior of Chu Lingfeng's family. No matter how he looked at it, he didn't seem to know about the situation here. If not for Luo Qingtong or Yi Qianxian, Chu Lingfeng, Lian Xingchen, and the others would have all died here. Moreover, based on the situation in the heart of the continent, the Tianfeng Chu family didn't seem to be able to easily enter the hole and leave. It was obvious that the Tianfeng Chu family and the Lian family of the Flying Star Planet were hiding something very important. And that was the discovery of the Tianluo grass. Chapter 2672. With that in mind, Luo Qingtong looked at Chu Jingyi and the others and asked, do you know what it was like when your family discovered the Skynet grass? Chu Jingyi and the others froze when they heard Luo Qingtong's words. Young Master Shao Qi, what do you mean? Chu Jingyi looked hesitant, as if he couldn't understand what Luo Qingtong meant. Lian Xingchen, on the other hand, reacted quickly. When Luo Qingtong spoke, he spoke in a deep voice. Our family members came back and said that they found the Skynet grass on this continent. It's very rare. They told us to be prepared. Prepare to compete with the Tianfeng Chu family. Because both families found the Skynet grass, we can only compete fairly. In order not to attract attention, this fair competition can only be between the younger generation. As he spoke, he looked sharply at Luo Qingtong. Young Master Shao Qi, you should know that if it weren't for this excuse, our family members wouldn't have allowed us to come here and take the risk. The people of the Flying Star Lian family here were almost all the powerful juniors of the Flying Star Lian family. Lian Xingchen and the other top descendants were the cornerstones of the Lian family in the future. It was safe to say that if all of them died here, the Lian family of the Flying Star realm would suffer heavy losses. In the future, the Lian family would decline in the Flying Star field. It would take too much time and resources to cultivate another batch of powerful descendants. It would be impossible for them to compete with other families of the same level. Other families wouldn't wait for the Lian family's descendants to grow stronger. Therefore, the consequences were not something that the Lian family of the Flying Star sector could afford. That was why they had arranged so many guards around their juniors. The Tianfeng Chu family was the same. If it weren't for the safety of their juniors, they wouldn't have gone to Heaven Wind Mercenary City and hired mercenaries to protect them. In this way, the two families wouldn't have deliberately hidden the truth. Because they wouldn't risk the safety of their juniors and the future of their families. Therefore, there were only two possibilities. First, the Chu and Lian families didn't know the true situation of the heart of the continent. The second possibility was that someone had deliberately misled them and had their people spread fake news so that the upper echelons of the Chu and Lian family would think that the situation here was nothing more than that. However, no matter what, it proved that the Chu clan and the Lian clan did not understand the situation here. Therefore, they no longer had a chance to contact the experts of the Chu and Lian families who were guarding outside. As expected, at Luo Qingtong's question, everyone activated the emergency communication tools they had with their families. This tool was given to them by their families so that they could notify their families for help when there was a change in the situation. Of course, the dangers during normal training didn't count it. Since they had all come here, their lives and deaths were up to fate. It was impossible for the family to come and save everyone if something happened to them. Even if something happened to Chu Lingfeng, it would still be the same. That was why Chu Yuqing had been so fearless when Chu Lingfeng had been surrounded and attacked. Chapter 2673. Besides, Chu Lingfeng was stubborn. Even if he was besieged and his family elders told him not to use it because of the dangers of the training, he would never use it. Generally, when they were used, there would be a huge change in the abandoned continent. At that time, the people of the Heavenly Wind Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan, who were guarding outside, would enter this abandoned continent on a large scale and bring their disciples out. However, no matter how hard they tried to activate their communication devices, they couldn't get any response. It was as if they were throwing mud into the ocean. By now, the people from the Flying Star Lian clan and the Tianfeng Chu clan knew that something big must have happened when they came to the abandoned continent to train and obtain the Skynet grass. Their families wouldn't have sent them here even though they knew that they were being sent to their deaths. It was obvious that they had been deceived in some way. It can't be the people who came to investigate the Skynet grass on the abandoned continent, Lian Xingxing said solemnly. That's right. It was impossible that both families had sent people to investigate. The two families were thousands of miles apart. They weren't even in the same galaxy. Who would target both families at the same time? That was impossible. Then there was only one possibility. The signs of the sky luo grass that the two families saw were incomplete. At that moment, the people from the Heavenly Wind Chu clan regained their senses. Chu Qiankong and the others said, "We know a little about the abandoned continent." The Heavenly Wind Chu clan was the first to discover the heavenly net grass. Later, it was discovered by the Lien clan of the Flying Star realm. Both sides sent the news back to their families. The people who discovered the Skynet grass were from our second elder's side. They were my uncle. He came back and told us that the Skynet grass was found on the abandoned continent. At the time, the heart of the continent was exposed. The people from the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lien clan were stunned when they heard Chu Qiankong's words. But now, the heart of the continent is clearly hidden deep underground. A disciple from the Flying Star Lien clan blurted out. "That's right. The heart of the continent is currently hidden deep underground. But the heart of the continent changes every time." "That doesn't mean anything," Chu Qiankong said. "No, that's not right." Lien Xingchen narrowed his eyes. Even if the location of the heart of the continent is constantly changing, it shouldn't be exposed. Because that means the heart of the continent will be completely defenseless. If I'm not wrong, our two families didn't encounter any obstacles in the process of discovering the Tianluo grass. At that time, I thought it was because this was an abandoned continent, and the heart of the continent was almost useless. That's why they didn't encounter any danger. I'm sure the clan thinks the same. But now it seems, Luo Qingtong interrupted him, something must have happened in the heart of the continent. It's very likely that it's the key to the birth of the heavenly net grass, the Tao spirit, and these spirit beasts. As Luo Qingtong spoke, she narrowed her eyes and looked at the spiritual beasts that were approaching them amidst the continuous howls. Chapter 2674. Some of them were hiding in caves in the mountains, while others were hiding in forests and rivers. Regardless of which one they were hiding in, all of them were converging towards Luo Qingtong's group from all directions. Their eyes were dark, and their claws were cold and sharp. Their saliva mixed with their low growls as they glared at Luo Qingtong's group. Behind them, the remaining 6 spirit beasts were chasing after Chu Yucheng and the rest of the group from the cave's entrance. The latter's group was in an extremely sorry state. Because they had been a step too late, when Luo Qingtong's group had rushed out of the cave, Chu Yucheng's group hadn't made it in time and had been attacked by the remaining 6 spirit beasts. If not for the fact that Luo Qingtong's group had taken some time to kill the 4 spirit beasts, Chu Yucheng's group would have been killed. Not only that, but because the 4 spirit beasts had been killed, the 6 spirit beasts had slowed down in their pursuit of Chu Yucheng, giving them a chance to rush out of the cave. Chu Yucheng's group would have all died here. But even so, their losses weren't light. Almost half of the guards had been killed by the 6 spirit beasts. Chu Yucheng's group had scrambled out of the cave. When they reached Luo Qingtong's group, Chu Yucheng gave her a backhanded slap, almost sending her flying out of the group. "Slut, it's all your fault." At this moment, Chu Yucheng's face was dark with anger and hatred. If not for Chu Ku's group questioning Luo Qingtong's decision, they wouldn't have ended up in this state. Chu Yucheng had already forgotten that he had also questioned Luo Qingtong's decision. Otherwise, how could Chu Ku's words have influenced him? But Chu Yucheng wouldn't admit it. He would only push the blame onto Chu Ku. Who told her to shout the loudest? How could Chu Yucheng admit his own incompetence? Naturally, she could only blame Chu Ku. Chu Ku had just escaped from the claws of those spirit beasts, but before she could even react, she was sent flying by Chu Yucheng's slap. She covered her face and didn't make a sound for a long time. She was so close to falling out of the team. How could this be? She looked blankly at Luo Qingtong, who was surrounded by people. Beside the latter were Chu Lingfeng, Lien Xingchen, and the white-masked man. He was just a weak young mercenary from God knows where. She didn't even have the strength of an exalt, but at this moment, under the contrast of the other party's lineup, she seemed to be the absolute center of the two groups. He was cherished by the leaders of the two teams, the young masters of the Tianfeng Chu family and the Lien family of the Flying Star sector. She, the third miss of the Tianfeng Chu family, was the one who should have enjoyed such treatment. However, she was treated like a stray dog. This, just what was going on. Chu Yufei stood not far from her, her hair disheveled. When she saw this scene, a trace of hatred and jealousy flashed across her face. The treatment Luo Xiaoqi was receiving right now was truly infuriating. Fortunately, she was a man. Otherwise, Chu Yufei and Chu Ku probably wouldn't have been able to bear such a blow. While their hearts were filled with hatred and jealousy, Luo Qingtong looked around at the scene and frowned. She was certain that something strange had happened in the heart of the continent. Chapter 2675. But no matter what it was, at this moment, they could only rely on themselves. They looked at the spirit beasts that were constantly approaching them. In the distance, there were even sharper roars of beasts. And Luo Qingtong even saw that in the distance, in the places where the decaying spirit energy did not cover, there were faintly discernible, transparent figures that appeared and disappeared. Obviously, these were the spirits of the Great Path that had retreated before. At this moment, they were all gathered in this cave. It was also because of the decaying spirit energy lingering around Luo Qingtong and the others that they couldn't get close. And these decaying spirit energy were drawn in by Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others. No one knew what method they used. The decaying spirit energy was almost guided by them, passing through the places where the living spirit energy was pervasive. It didn't disperse for a long time, lingering around Luo Qingtong and the others. It was also because of the existence of these decaying spirit energy that Luo Qingtong and the others were so calm when they were walking in the cave, and the spirits of the Great Path didn't dare to disturb them. At this moment, after these spirit beasts appeared, the spirits of the Great Path appeared. Roar! The roars of the spirits of the Great Path and the spirit beasts rose and fell one after another, making everyone indescribably flustered. These two things could be said to complement each other, and were completely a great weapon against people. The spirits of the Great Path almost ignored all attacks, and the spirit beasts were not afraid of the decaying spirit energy. Once these two attacked at the same time, the consequences would be unimaginable. The people of the Tianfeng Chu family and the Flying Star Lien family thought, and suddenly their faces became very ugly. Luo Qingtong's complexion was fine. She had Yi Qianxian by her side. If this man couldn't handle it, he would inevitably make a sound. At this moment, the man's hand tightly around her waist was steady and strong, without the slightest fluctuation in the posture of tightening. Thinking about it, he should be able to handle it. But even if Yi Qianxian could handle it, Luo Qingtong couldn't ignore Chu Lingfeng and the others. This man still didn't know her identity. If something happened, he would definitely only protect her. What about Chu Lingfeng, Guifeng, and the others? Even if Luo Qingtong revealed her identity, at most, Yi Qianxian would be able to save Chu Lingfeng. Luo Qingtong wouldn't be able to let him take Guifeng and the others away. Moreover, Luo Qingtong didn't know if this would worsen his injuries and worsen the damage to Yi Qianxian's meridians. Therefore, she would not ask Yi Qianxian to do this unless she had no other choice. But at the same time, she couldn't watch Guifeng and the others die. When she was in the Red Flame mercenary group, he took care of her a lot. If it weren't for their care, she wouldn't have been able to live so smoothly in Heaven's Wind mercenary city. In the beginning, Chu Xiaofan had kept her by his side because of Guifeng and the others. She had received a lot of care from them, so she had to return the favor. If there was nothing she could do, it would be fine. Naturally, she would first protect herself and Chu Lingfeng. But now wasn't the time to be forced into such a situation. As Luo Qingtong thought this, her eyes suddenly became conflicted. If nothing unexpected happened, her identity wouldn't be able to be hidden anymore. Fortunately, Yi Qianxian didn't have the time to settle the score with her. Sob, 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 what the hell? Chapter 2676. Luo Qingtong had planned to tell Yi Qianxian her identity at that time and appease him. Even if that man was angry, he wouldn't be too angry. Now, the appearance of these great Tao spirits and spirit beasts turned her thoughts into ashes. If her identity was exposed at this time, she could imagine how angry that man would be. No, she had to hold on as long as she could. While Luo Qingtong was struggling in her heart, Yi Qianxian could feel how tense the body of the person in his arms was, how guilty she looked, and how she kept peeking at him without looking sideways. Luo Qingtong probably didn't know that every time she faced him, she would look at him like this. Although she did it every time without leaving any trace. But Yi Qianxian was used to being tricked by her. How could he not notice it? Even if he didn't notice it before, he had already been trained by her. Seeing her gaze, he immediately snorted coldly and didn't speak. He knew that this woman was worried that her identity would be exposed. After all, the appearance of these great Tao spirits and spirit beasts was not simple. Thinking of what he had sensed before, the tyrannical power that didn't seem to erupt from the heart of the continent of an abandoned continent at all, Yi Qianxian narrowed his eyes slightly. He looked at the heart of the continent. There was something in it. There is something in the heart of the continent. He said to Luo Qingtong in a deep voice. His voice was so low that only Luo Qingtong could hear it. It's a world within a world, and the Tianluo grass is also inside. If we seize the things inside, we may be able to make these spirit beasts and great Tao spirits listen to us, or retreat. Hearing Yi Qianxian's words, Luo Qingtong also nodded. That's right. Now, this was the only path they could take. However, although Luo Qingtong also saw through this, she didn't expect Yi Qianxian to tell her. Was Luo Xiaoqi's identity so pleasing to him? Or could it be that as long as it was related to her, this man would treat her differently? For some reason, Luo Qingtong's heart suddenly felt sweet and warm. This man was overbearing, narrow-minded, arrogant, and jealous. He also liked to control her. Every time he got angry, it was bigger than the sky. Although he was overbearing, he was willing to work hard to restrain himself for her. Although he was narrow-minded, he was willing to learn to be tolerant for her. He was childish because he loved her, and jealous because he didn't want anyone to get close to her. He cared about her because he wanted her to be by his side at all times. Every time he got angry, he would be as angry as the sky, but he would never hurt her. His strength was tyrannical, and his prestige was unparalleled. Luo Qingtong was also a supreme king of the 24th century, so the pride in her heart was not inferior to his. However, she was willing to restrain the arrogance in her heart for him and learn to rely on and love him. Luo Qingtong had thought that she would never find someone who was willing to make her fall in love with him, who would make her restrain her domineering aura and bow her head to him. However, after meeting Yi Qianxian, she realized that all this was not so difficult. As long as you could meet a man who always cared about you, respected you, loved you, and let you override all his pride and principles, it would be enough. Yi Qianxian could break all his dignity and pride for her. Why couldn't she bow her head and act coquettishly for him? Men also needed a sense of security. Especially Yi Qianxian, who was overbearing and narrow-minded. Luo Qingtong chuckled as she thought of this. In fact, she quite liked Yi Qianxian's appearance when he was nervous and angry about her, but couldn't do anything to her. This made her feel that she was cherished and cared for. Especially when that man was flustered and exasperated. Well, she admitted that she was probably a fake wife. Chapter 2677. The heart of the continent had the most spirit beasts. There were almost layers upon layers of them, from the bottom of the mountain to the top of the mountain. Powerful spirit beasts occupied every spot on the mountain. It was almost impossible to rush from where Luo Qingtong and the others were. In fact, it might even lead to a dead end. But after seeing Luo Qingtong's order, even though Chu Ku was gnashing her teeth in hatred, she didn't dare to say anything more. Since she didn't say anything, Chu Yucheng and the others naturally didn't refute Luo Qingtong's words. After all, it was because they hadn't listened to Luo Qingtong that they'd hesitated for a moment that they hadn't been able to walk out of the hole. At this moment, it was clear that Luo Qingtong was the leader of these two groups. If Chu Lingfeng and Lian Xingchen were willing to listen to Luo Qingtong, then there was no need to mention the white-masked man. In this way, practically all three groups listened to Luo Qingtong. Chu Yucheng and the others' objections weren't actually objections at all. In fact, it might even lead to their deaths. In that case, it was better to just follow the main group. Chu Yucheng and the others had almost been scared out of their wits by how they'd courted death. The expressions of the elite guards following them were extremely unfriendly. If they didn't listen to Luo Qingtong, they'd abandon them and leave with Luo Qingtong and the others. After all, they'd suffered far too many casualties protecting Chu Yucheng and the others. Even if they'd signed an agreement with the Tianfeng Chu clan, how could an agreement be more important than their lives? Every time Luo Qingtong made a decision, it seemed dangerous, but reality proved that she'd always been right. Moreover, she'd always led them out of danger. As a result, these elite guards wouldn't listen to Chu Yucheng and the others this time. Fortunately, Chu Yucheng and the others didn't continue to court death. Without their discordant voices, the atmosphere in the group was unusually harmonious and cohesive. Breaking out of the encirclement in the direction of the heart of the continent is indeed the best way. Lian Xingchen said in a deep voice. His judgment of the surrounding situation was not as detailed as Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian, but this did not prevent him from seeing the basic situation. Their communication devices did not respond at all, which meant that it was impossible for them to be rescued by the experts of the Tianfeng Chu family and the Lian family of the Flying Star sector. But if he were to retreat through the hole, if this trick had worked, Luo Qingtong wouldn't have rushed in with them. Thus, they could only charge forward. The heart of the continent was their only hope. No matter how these Tao spirits and spirit beasts appeared, it had to be related to the heart of the continent. Their only chance of survival was there. There was nothing wrong with Luo Qingtong's decision. Besides, the spirit beasts were heavily guarded, and they even set up such tight defenses around the heart of the continent. No matter how one looked at it, the heart of the continent was their weak spot. Let's go. Lian Xingchen said in a deep voice. He waved the long sword in his hand, then gestured with his left hand. In an instant, countless streaks of starlight gathered in his left hand, condensing into a long sword that flickered with starlight. Condensing stars into swords was the Flying Star Lian clan's top cultivation technique. It was an important characteristic of the astral art, and it also possessed great destructive power. The long sword condensed by the stars had been nurtured by the disciples of the Lian family of the Flying Star sector with their own aura and strength for years. Chapter 2678. With the blood of the Flying Star Lian family's younger brothers, the battle power will increase by several times. The drawbacks are very obvious. Due to the blood condensation, the sword will be broken or damaged, and the foundation will be severely damaged. The realm will regress, and the damage will take a long time to recover. Therefore, unless there are special circumstances, the Flying Star Lian family will use this star sword. Enough to rush into Lu Lian's stars, but how uses this star sword? The Flying Star Lian family's younger brothers use this star sword in their bodies one after another. In an instant, starlight burst forth, and the brilliance of the stars shone brightly. The Flying Star Lian family's younger brothers hold two swords, and their eyes are cold. The Lian family star robe is shining. The Flying Star Lian family summons the Star Sword family's edge color is very serious. The Flying Star Lian family actually hides a powerful ultimate move. Everyone looks at each other. Qian Kong, Yuan Hong, Jing Yi, and the others all roar. In an instant, their bodies are swollen, and their veins are exposed. The veins are exposed, as if something is breaking through the skin. Boom! 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 Pieces of armor-like things emerge from the bodies of the family's younger brothers, forming the appearance of armor. Flesh and blood armor. Family secret. Only the family's younger brothers can cultivate the hidden ultimate move. The attack and defense of the family's younger brothers are increased. Ordinary attacks can't penetrate the armor. There is no difference between the Danguo breaking armor field and the Flying Star Lien family star sword breaking armor. If it is light, the realm will regress, and if it is heavy, the foundation will be damaged, and the method will continue to advance. Because they know that Lu Ji and the others are the key to survival, the family no longer dares to hide and transform into armor. Its Ling armor is the most shocking. The armor is completely black, and sharp bone spikes appear on the armor's arms and back and elbows. It's like a killing machine. The armor's luster is darker and shinier, as if it's real armor. It highlights the valiance of Ling's bloodline. After all, the armor condensed by he is simpler and cruder than the armor condensed by Yuanhong, Yucheng, and the other family's younger brothers. The family members condensed their armor, and the mercenaries and top-notch guards successively used their own ultimate moves. Chapter 2679. Let's go. Luo Qingtong's eyes slightly condensed. She took Fu Yucheng and other thousand silkworms silk thread almost transparent silk thread jade purity. Forgetting how the silk thread failed to save the most, Luo Qingtong Ling Ho Luo successfully made the move to retreat immediately, giving her a reaction to succeed. This woman used the move to deal with the spirit beast, knowing that the spirit beast's keen sense of smell is extremely powerful. Only this spirit intelligence loses. Luo is afraid of repeating the same trick. Yucheng held back his sarcasm when his mouth was cut off, his eyes widened seeing Luo Qingtong's silk thread fluttering, extremely afraid of speed and the slightest gap, flying around Luo Qingtong's silk thread shroud, without any hindrance or trace. What's even more surprising is that Luo Qingtong's silk thread shroud and surround the silk thread completely. It's simple, Guo Yucheng and other fruits are like Luo Qingtong's silk thread shroud. Silk thread shroud. The circle shroud. The great doubt formed by the silk thread scattered the decaying spirits around the silk thread shroud. Don't let the spirit get close to the spirit beast for fear that the spirit will be killed. Luo Qingtong's silk thread shroud every surrounding body shroud, but circle shroud several circles. Due to the volume of the circles formed and offset each other, fanning out any decaying spirits. Only this silk thread passed through the team, actually touching anything. It's simply incredible. Luo Qingtong how can control the silk thread touch? Knowing that Zhou Liangqi burst like a knife. Every Luo Qingtong silk thread shroud touch a bit, immediately, the silk thread shroud tangled. Luo Qingtong forcefully juggling bladesets as if she knows all about the situation and the strengths and weaknesses of the Zhou Liangqi burst. Yucheng's incredible scene is almost numb. The word stuck in his throat almost choked him to death. Ridicule. Ridicule. Hoshan slaps his face. Luo is simply a monster. Ho Yucheng finally knew that Luo Qingtong saved Ling Shroud Yun even more. Underestimate the enemy. She is indeed. Even if she let the prepared Luo Qingtong save Ling Shroud again, it's still easy. The youth is really afraid of the extreme. Chapter 2680. On the other hand, Yi Qianren looked at Luo Qingtong with raised eyebrows. She thought, this woman finally can't keep up the act. Let's see how long she can last. Your method of controlling the threads is rather peculiar, he said slowly to Luo Qingtong. Ha, ha. Luo Qingtong laughed dryly. Naturally, she'd used her eye sorcery to achieve this. But if Luo Qingtong didn't say anything, no one would know. This was the best she could do. If it still didn't work, then she'd have no choice but to reveal her identity. At that time, this man wouldn't speak to her so gently. As Luo Qingtong thought this, the corners of her lips twitched. She could almost hear this man's exasperated roar, Luo Qi. She only hoped that this time, they'd be able to reach the heart of the continent smoothly. Mommy, please delay the exposure of my identity for a little while longer. Please don't come as fiercely as a storm. Luo Qingtong prayed in her heart. Fortunately, Yi Qianxian didn't say anything else after saying this. Whoosh! He hugged Luo Qingtong's waist tightly with both hands. With a flick of his sleeves, his entire body shot forward like an arrow. Boom! When he leaped up, the other members of the Lian family of the Flying Star clan and the Chu family of the Heavenly Wind clan all took action. Chu Yucheng, who'd been paying attention to Luo Qingtong's threads, realized that his understanding of Luo Qingtong was still far from the upper limit. The threads seemed to have a mind of their own, following their movements. Almost at the same time as their figures rushed forward, the threads all moved in response. It must be known that everyone's speed was different. Some were fast, some were slow, some were tall, some were short. Even the aura of power that burst forth from their bodies was different. This difference was something that even they themselves could not detect, let alone control. However, Luo Qingtong was able to detect their outburst of strength in advance, and take into account their speed and height. This was simply terrifying. The silk threads controlled by Luo Qingtong surrounded them like a protector, but didn't hinder their movements. They didn't need to worry about the existence of these threads at all. They didn't need to worry about disturbing the operation of these threads, which would limit their speed and attacks. Because those threads were like living creatures, they would automatically avoid them. Was this Luo Xiaoqi a demon or an immortal? Or a god? Chu Yucheng had never seen such an inconceivable thing before. In that instant, Luo Qingtong's move stunned him. It was the same for Chu Ku, Chu Yufei, and the others. They were also disdainful of Luo Qingtong's action of taking out the silk thread. It was only because they had been taught a lesson before that they didn't dare to speak again. However, the disdain and mockery in their hearts didn't lessen at all. They felt that Luo Qingtong's actions were nothing more than sensationalism. What kind of protection could her actions provide? However, at that moment, seeing Luo Qingtong skillfully taking everyone into her protection, their expressions finally changed. Luo Qingtong's actions could already be called a divine skill. Perhaps even the sky martial arts realm experts who could see through the changes of the world's origin energy wouldn't dare say that they could do what Luo Qingtong did. As for the sky martial arts realm, what kind of valiant and unattainable strength and realm was that? Chu Ku, Chu Yufei, and the others simply couldn't imagine it. After all, the strongest person in their Tianfeng Chu clan, Clan Master Chu, was only comparable to the Earth martial arts realm. And this was because the power of his bloodline was strong, far surpassing that of ordinary cultivators. Chapter 2681. While Chu Yucheng, Chu Ku, and the others' expressions changed drastically, Luo Qingtong's team collided with the herd of spirit beasts in the direction of the heart of the continent. Those spirit beasts howled one after another and pounced on them. The Tianfeng Chu family immediately stepped forward under Chu Lingfeng's lead. Chu Lingfeng, who was covered in black armor, looked like a grim reaper from hell. With a wave of his hand, he blocked a huge spirit beast that leaped over. Then, there were 2 more, 3 more, 4, 5 more. A total of 5 spirit beasts bit Chu Lingfeng in an instant. The other Tianfeng Chu family members were also bitten by 1 or 2 spirit beasts in an instant. However, Chu Lingfeng could not withstand as many spirit beasts as he could. Because he was standing at the front of the team, he was like the sharpest and heaviest knife that was inserted in the vanguard position. If those spirit beasts wanted to pounce on the Tianfeng Chu family members behind him, they could not avoid Chu Lingfeng. However, this would roar. With a furious roar, Chu Lingfeng's hands tore apart 2 spirit beasts. As for the other two spirit beasts that were biting onto his legs, they were also kicked away by him. The sharp bone spurs on his knees directly pierced the bellies of the two spirit beasts. The last spirit beast bit Chu Lingfeng's neck, but Chu Lingfeng hit it with his head. It fell to the ground with a whimper, and its skull was crushed by Chu Lingfeng's foot. Roar! Following Chu Lingfeng's roar, the other Tianfeng Chu family members also blocked the attacks of the spirit beasts in front of them. Then, with a whoosh, Lian Xingchen and the others' long swords were mixed with the swords in their left hands and they attacked together. In an instant, the spirit beasts blocked by the Tianfeng Chu family members were all killed. While they were killing these spirit beasts, blood-red howls sounded one after another from behind them. Everyone's expressions changed slightly. Only then did they remember that they were not only facing spirit beasts from one direction. Spirit beasts from other directions were also urgently waiting to attack. And those were just ordinary disciples who might not be able to block them. Just as their expressions changed slightly, Yi Zichen's expression changed slightly. Roar! Mournful cries of spirit beasts suddenly rang out, followed by the sound of large amounts of blood and heavy objects falling to the ground. Everyone turned around and saw that in the originally unguarded area behind them, invisible threads mixed with blood were rapidly spinning in the air. It turned out that when they were attacking, Luo Qingtong had promptly retracted the protective threads in front of them and added them to the rear. The spirit beasts that were pouncing at the rear were all cut into pieces by these threads. In the other directions, Luo Qingtong's threads also achieved brilliant results. Her threads cooperated with the attacks of the ordinary disciples and the group of mercenaries to firmly guard the other directions except where Lian Xingchen and the others were. Luo Qingtong's threads could be used to attack and defend. When the ordinary disciples attacked, she defended them and prevented the spirit beasts from getting close. When they recovered from their defense, she attacked. Chapter 2682. Roar! After the invisible threads in Luo Qingtong's hands pierced through the limbs and bones of the spirit beasts, they were like marionettes pulling strings. They gathered the bodies of the spirit beasts together. Roar! In Luo Qingtong's hands, the invisible threads were constantly intertwined and dancing in her hands. Boom, boom, boom. The spirit beasts that were pierced by her threads immediately moved uncontrollably and rushed toward the other spirit beasts that were pouncing toward Luo Qingtong and the others. The two sides were fighting fiercely. The spirit beasts that were rushing toward Luo Qingtong and the others were suddenly intercepted halfway. They didn't know what was going on and could only fight back instinctively. However, they couldn't tell which spirit beasts were their enemies and which weren't. Therefore, they could only attack randomly. At this moment, the spirit beasts were in chaos. This was what Lian Xingchen and the others saw when they turned around. They thought that the spirit beasts might be attacked from the back and the left and right, but the scene in front of them was clearly that the spirit beasts were killing each other. Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others who were following Luo Qingtong didn't even make a move. Go, don't stop. Keep going. Luo Qingtong leaned on Yi Qianxian and didn't notice that the man was holding her tighter and tighter. Her 5 fingers were constantly shaking. With her current energy, she could at most ensure that the spirit beasts at the back wouldn't rush over. However, the spirit beasts on the left and right might not be able to stop all of them. Moreover, they could at most hold on for less than 15 minutes. Fortunately, Bei Qing and Feng Yu were here to fill in the gaps. There shouldn't be a problem. When Luo Qingtong's voice sounded, Lian Xingchen and the others came back to their senses. He took a deep look at Luo Qingtong and then said to Chu Qiankong and the others, "The Tianfeng Chu family is very lucky." He was surprised to find a treasure like Luo Xiaoqi as his guard. Lian Xingchen was certain that if it weren't for Luo Qingtong, the chances of them making it out alive would be less than 30%. The remaining 30% were the experts of the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan who had sensed the anomaly on their side in time and came to their rescue. Otherwise, it wouldn't even be 10%. Unlike now, they only cared about cutting through the enemy like a sharp knife. As for the rear and left sides, there was not the slightest bit of worry. There was not even the slightest bit of worry? Awesome! After saying this, he directly slashed away a spirit beast that was charging at him. Then, he raised his voice and said to Luo Qingtong with a bright smile, "Luo Qingtong, if we can go back alive today, you can come to the Lian family of the Flying Star if you have any difficulties in the future. I will do my best to solve your problems." As he spoke, his gaze swept over Chu Qiankong, Chu Yucheng, and the others. The meaning of his words was self-evident. Obviously, he wanted Luo Qingtong to come to the Lian family of the Flying Star if Chu Yucheng, Chu Qiankong, and the others tried to harm her again. At that time, they would naturally stand up for her. This was both to repay a debt of gratitude and to recruit her. Luo Qingtong smiled faintly. On the other hand, Chu Yucheng and the others' expressions were abnormally ugly. Wasn't Lian Xingchen implying that they were as blind as a bat? They didn't even know how to recruit a monster like Luo Xiaoqi. Instead, they wanted to take advantage of them. Chu Jingyi glared at Chu Yucheng and the others, then said to Lian Xingchen, "Luo Xiaoqi is close to our young master. Young Master Lian, you don't need to have any ideas about her." His words were very obvious. Luo Xiaoqi was their young master's woman, so the Lian family of the Flying Star Lian clan shouldn't have any ideas about her. Chapter 2683. Pft. Hearing Lian Xingchen's words, Luo Qingtong, who had been smiling silently, almost choked. What kind of ambiguous words were Lian Xingchen saying? She still had a jealous man by her side. Chu Jingyi and the others were also dumbfounded. They didn't expect Lian Xingchen to say something like that. But then again, young Master Lian wasn't inferior to their young master at all. No, it wasn't just not bad. Apart from talent, everything else was far ahead of the rest. His young master had been left behind by more than a few streets. Chu Jingyi felt a toothache at the thought of this. He felt that he had opened a door for the Lian family's young master to poach her. What if the Lian family's young master seduced Luo Xiaoqi with his beauty? Their young master was too simple-minded to be a match for the other party. Chu Jingyi and the others' lips twitched at the thought of this. Luo Qingtong's lips were twitching even more than theirs. These people were really trying to kill her. Be serious. I can only hold on for 15 minutes at most. We have to charge into the heart of the continent in that time. Otherwise, we won't be able to withstand the counterattack of those spirit beasts. By then, even Yi Qianxian and the others would be able to save her. The Flying Star Lian family and the Tianfeng Chu family might not be able to escape. Luo Qingtong's words made Lian Xingchen and Chu Jingyi's expressions turn serious. 15 minutes? Lian Xingchen glanced at Luo Qingtong. The latter nodded with an indifferent expression. 15 minutes. But now, there's less than 15 minutes left. The moment Luo Qingtong used the threads to pierce those spirit beasts, the time had already begun. All right. Lian Xingchen nodded at Luo Qingtong, then said to the Lian family members and their top guards, "Let's go. We'll charge to the right. You guys charge to the left," he said to the Tianfeng Chu family. As for the middle lane, there was no need to worry about it. Chu Lingfeng was at the front, while Yi Qianxian and the others were guarding Luo Qingtong in the middle. Attacking from 3 directions simultaneously was the fastest way to break through when there was nothing to worry about from the left, right, and rear. Boom! Led by Lian Xingchen, the people of the Flying Star Lian family and the Tianfeng Chu family unleashed 200% of their combat power and broke through the barrier rapidly. The large group of spirit beasts that were charging towards them were all cut up by them in batches. They circled from the front left and the front right, and finally met up with Chu Lingfeng, who was right in front. A large number of spirit beasts died under their swords and palms. Like a sharp sword, everyone rushed towards the peak of the mountain in front of them. When the spirit beasts saw that they were getting closer and closer to the heart of the continent, their roars became even more deafening. Behind them, countless spirit beasts were chasing after them. Almost all of them came from all directions of the cave world. At that moment, these spirit beasts were running with all their might towards the team. Luo Qingtong's fingers moved continuously, using the threads to guide the spirit beasts. She kept causing them to fall into a state of mutual destruction, delaying their pursuit. If someone were to look down from the sky at this moment, they would realize that the entire mountain range was densely covered by countless spirit beasts. Chapter 2684. Once they stopped, the huge wave formed by the spirit beasts behind them would completely devour them. 100 meters. 50 meters. 40 meters, Luo Qingtong and the others were getting closer and closer to the heart of the continent. Roar. Finally, some spirit beasts broke through the protection of Luo Qingtong's silk threads and rushed into the group. Kill. Yi Qinxian's eyes were cold as he waved his sleeve. Bang! 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 Countless violent explosions sounded. In an instant, the bodies of the spirit beasts were smashed into minced meat by Bei Qing and Feng Yu's attacks. However, their attacks were mixed with the attacks of the mercenaries and ordinary disciples, so no one noticed them and knew that they were the culprits. Otherwise, some of the mercenaries and ordinary disciples would have died. After all, they were not strong enough to fight against these spirit beasts. At this moment, perhaps because Luo Qingtong and the others were getting closer to the heart of the continent, the spirit beasts that rushed out were all at LV9 of the human martial realm. If not for Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others, they would have died. With the strength of Lian Xingchen, Chu Lingfeng, and the others, they would have suffered heavy losses. Not to mention that he was still able to charge forward like this. However, the battle was so intense that no one noticed that. Moreover, no one knew that the strength that Bei Qing and Feng Yu had revealed had already surpassed the strength of a cultivator of the 9th level of the human martial layer. Boom! 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 The blood of countless spirit beasts splashed. The 1,000 silkworms threads in Luo Qingtong's hands were not enough. However, she did not retract them. After all, her silk threads could not stop the high-level spirit beasts, but they could stop the large number of ordinary spirit beasts. The number of spirit beasts gathered together was enough to overturn rivers and seas. Let's go. Let's charge over. Seeing that the group was only 20 meters away from the heart of the continent, Luo Qingtong wanted them to continue in one go. Roar. An extremely violent roar came from the front. Then, the crowd saw a spiritual beast lying on the ground, its body twitching violently. Above its body, a huge transparent figure seemed to be entering its body. Not good. It's those great Tao spirits. Lian Xingchen glanced over and shouted, "They're merging with the spiritual beasts. We cannot let them succeed." When the spirit beasts pounced on Luo Qingtong and the others, the great Tao spirits also pounced on them. However, because Luo Qingtong and the others were constantly surrounded by the decaying spirit qi, they simply couldn't get close to them. As for Lian Xing and the others, their stellar swords were able to condense and disperse at will. Thus, they were able to easily kill them. As long as they came into contact with even the slightest bit of decaying spiritual qi, they wouldn't be able to completely conceal themselves in the midst of life's spiritual qi and would be killed by the Lian clan members. Over time, they no longer dared to approach. Unexpectedly, they were all condensing together at this moment. Luo Qingtong and the others watched as the great Tao spirits merged into the spirit beast's body. How could they not know that this would greatly increase the spirit beast's strength? However, there was no way for them to stop it now. The spirit beast was at the back of the group, close to the edge of the heart of the continent. No one noticed the changes on its side. Chapter 2685. Roar. The spirit beast roared violently, and its bones creaked violently. Its fur, flesh, and bones were all expanding violently. In the blink of an eye, its body had grown more than 10 times larger than before. Its entire body had changed greatly. The ferocious and ruthless aura around him was incomparably fierce and sharp. Earth Martial Arts Realm. Lian Xingchen and the others were more knowledgeable than ordinary people. They could tell at a glance that the spirit beast's aura had skyrocketed. Their faces immediately turned pale. Roar. Following the roar of the spirit beast, the entire cave world began to tremble violently. Lian Xingchen and the others were about 20 meters away from the heart of the continent when the spirit beast roared fiercely. Immediately, they lost their balance and were all blasted back by the huge force contained in the roar. Pfft! All of them coughed out a mouthful of blood. In an instant, their faces turned as pale as paper. All of them had been injured by the roar. Earth Martial Arts Realm. So powerful. Lian Xingchen and the others were horrified. They had never seen an expert above the Earth Martial Arts realm make a move before. They didn't know that the power of the attack would be so terrifying. A single roar was enough to injure them. Wouldn't all of them be torn to shreds by the time it made its move? Even the top guards at LV9 of the human martial arts realm had ugly looks on their faces. They saw it more clearly than Lian Xingchen and the others. This spirit beast wasn't as simple as having just entered the Earth Martial Arts realm. Such a powerful roar not only injured Lian Xingchen and the others, but also caused their qi and blood to churn violently. They couldn't condense their qi and blood in a short period of time. What did it mean to be unable to condense their qi and blood? It meant that they had no power to fight back in front of this spirit beast. Being suppressed so obviously, this spirit beast was definitely not in the Earth Martial Arts realm or a low-level Earth Martial Arts realm. It should be very close to the middle level, which was LV4 of the Earth Martial Arts realm. Damn it, they discovered it too late. Otherwise, if they interrupted the fusion of those spirits of Tao and that spirit beast in time, this kind of thing would definitely not have happened. But who would have thought that the great Tao spirits could fuse with these spirit beasts? They didn't know anything about great Tao spirits. After all, it was something that only existed in legends. When the spirit beast roared, Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others flew back and stood guard beside Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian. The power in their bodies was not affected in the slightest. It was just that no one knew about it at the moment. As they retreated, Luo Qingtong grabbed Yi Qianxian's hand. "My dear, moi. Please don't be angry with me. I really didn't mean to hide my identity, but I really have my own difficulties. Well, we can't wash our dirty linen in public. No matter what you do when we get back, I'll accept any punishment, all right? Don't be angry now, please don't be angry. Be good. I'll treat your meridians." Chapter 2686. She didn't say it explicitly, but she believed that this man would understand. God knew that she had planned everything, but she didn't expect the mission of the heart of the continent to be so deceptive. Now that this spirit beast had suddenly mutated, Luo Qingtong wasn't sure if Yi Qianxian and the others could handle it. This man was injured, and Luo Qingtong absolutely couldn't let him take risks. He could only treat the injuries on his body first. But once she started to act, her identity would be exposed. Therefore, Luo Qingtong could only tell him everything. She only hoped that this man wouldn't be so angry that he wouldn't let her treat him. Luo Qingtong was so affectionate and cute. Yi Qianxian found it interesting, and there was an indescribable satisfaction in his eyes. He didn't know what she meant by affectionate and affectionate. Yi Qianxian didn't know what it meant, but he understood the word love very well. Was this woman saying that she loved him? Sure enough, she was born cunning. Every time she got into trouble, she would use sweet words to coax him. Did she think he was a 3-year-old child? Yi Qianxian thought so, and the curve between his eyebrows suddenly rose. There was also a faint smile at the corner of his lips. If it weren't for the white jade mask, such intense joy would almost burn people's eyes. He was as beautiful as jade and dazzling. Such words were not only used to describe women. Now Yi Qianxian's face was even more dazzling than the scorching sun in the sky. It could be said that he was handsome and dazzling. Humph! Luo Qingtong. Yi Qianxian's smile was dazzling, but the cold snort in his mouth didn't diminish at all. You, before he could finish speaking, Luo Qingtong hurriedly said, yes, I know. I lied to you. I know I was wrong. Good girl, let me treat your injuries first. By the way, remember to call me Luo Qi or Luo Xiaoqi. Don't call me by the wrong name, darling. You're in big trouble. You. Yi Qianxian was furious. His words were all stuffed back into his stomach by Luo Qingtong's words. Why was this woman so infuriating? She had said everything she needed to say. What did he say? Why didn't this woman play by the rules? Yi Qianxian gritted his teeth. He wanted to say something, but Luo Qingtong's power had already rushed into his body. As soon as Luo Qingtong's power entered his body, Luo Qingtong immediately felt the miserable state of his meridians. You man! This time, it was Luo Qingtong's turn to gnash her teeth. You were so badly injured, yet you still dared to attack. Thinking back to how Yi Qianxian had wantonly slaughtered his way through the abandoned continent, Luo Qingtong felt a burst of anger. Did this man take his body seriously at all? Humph, if someone hadn't hidden his identity, would I have ended up like this? Yi Qianxian gritted his teeth and whispered in her ear. This woman was so obedient when she bowed her head and admitted her mistake. Now, she immediately exposed her true nature and even dared to be fierce to him. Luo Qingtong was speechless for a while. It seemed that this was indeed her fault. That's not right. She didn't know his true identity at that time. She only found out later. Did this count? Luo Qingtong's lips twitched, but she still felt guilty and didn't refute. Chapter 2687. With that thought in mind, Luo Qingtong hurriedly changed the topic. Let me treat you. How did you end up like this? And the Shifang dragon ring on your body, why is it gone? If she had the Shifang dragon ring, she would not have missed this man at the beginning. And the latter hid his identity and face, so there must be some hidden reasons. Something happened. It's not good to take it with me, so I took it off. Yi Qianxian's face was indifferent, and he did not mention what happened in Tiandu. He did not want Luo Qingtong to worry. Naturally, he would deal with the matter over there. In any case, he would not let anyone hurt the woman in front of him. No one. And his life would not be at the mercy of others. Yes. Hearing Yi Qianxian's words, Luo Qingtong knew that he was hiding something. Did he not want her to know and worry her? Luo Qingtong did not say anything, but she kept this matter in her heart. The more Yi Qianxian did not say, the more it proved that it had something to do with that side. Thinking of what Elder Yu had told her about that side, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes slightly. One day, she would make a trip there and see who was bullying her man. Heavenly vain body, short-lived body. Her man was naturally blessed with both good fortune, and a long-lived and worry-free image. As for those people, they would all wait and see who would live longer in the end. She was afraid that they would not live past her time. Luo Qingtong snorted coldly, but the power in her body did not stop at all, and directly circulated in Yi Qianxian's body. As the power in her body flowed, the strength of Yi Qianxian's meridians was repaired little by little. The broken meridians before were not so tough. With a little force, the broken meridians could be retensioned and become tough again. The strength of Yi Qianxian's meridians was improving little by little. In the depths of his body, there was an enormous and terrifying power that could shatter the heavens and rend the earth. At this moment, when it sensed that his meridians were being repaired, it almost let out a joyous buzzing sound. If Yi Qianxian hadn't intentionally controlled it, the roars of dragons and tigers would have been heard. The power of its sound was probably even greater than that of the spirit beast from before. At this moment, the spirit beast had also completed its fusion. It abruptly flipped over and stood up, its feet stomping on the ground. Its entire body was still covered in blood from the forced enlargement of its body. However, his entire body had already leaped into the air in an instant. With a valiant aura that could tear through everything, he rushed towards Luo Qingtong and the others. Roar! Along with its wild roar, the people of the Flying Star Lian family and the Tianfeng Chu family, as well as the guards of the LV-9 human martial realm, all of them were shaken to the point that their faces turned pale. The qi and blood in their bodies were surging, and they could not summon any strength to fight back. Their faces were filled with despair. They had never thought that they would fail at the final step, even though they had almost reached the final step. The strength of this mutated spirit beast was too strong for them to deal with. They had already closed their eyes in despair and were ready to die. Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others frowned. They looked at each other and were ready to take action. With their strength, even if they were sealed, it was not difficult to deal with this spirit beast. Chapter 2688. Get out of the way. You guys deal with those low-level spirit beasts. As he spoke, a group of figures shot out from behind Luo Qingtong and the others like a straight arrow. The figures of those people were extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, Lian Xingchen and the others saw them rush from the foot of the mountain to the top. Their speed was much faster than Luo Qingtong and the others. Their journey to Tibet was accompanied by the roars of countless spirit beasts. Those spirit beasts were sent flying by the airwaves around them. After they rolled and got up again, they immediately charged in their direction. Earth Martial Arts Realm, so many Earth Martial Arts Realm experts. The moment they saw these people appear, Chu Qiankong and the others couldn't help but cry out. They looked at the group of people in front of them with pale faces. There weren't many of them, only about 20 or 30 of them, but their strength was terrifying. Earth Martial Arts Realm, Earth Martial Arts Realm, Earth Martial Arts Realm. Most of these people were in the Earth Martial Arts Realm. Only a few of them were in the 9th level of the Human Martial Arts Realm, but their strength was not something that ordinary people in the 9th level of the Human Martial Arts Realm could compare with. At least, the airwaves from the mutated spirit beast's roar had no effect on those people in the 9th level of the Human Martial Arts Realm. Their expressions were normal, and even the frequency of their breathing didn't change. There are so many Earth Martial Arts Realm experts. Where did they come from? Lian Xingchen, Chu Qiankong, and the others' faces turned into paste. They had thought that they were the only ones on this abandoned continent. They hadn't expected that there would be such a powerful and terrifying group of people hidden here. You caused the Tianluo grass phenomenon on this abandoned continent? Lian Xingchen's expression changed slightly. His reaction was faster than the average person's. He quickly figured it out. The two families had only sent their juniors to participate in the fight for the Tianluo grass. It was these people who had done it. Otherwise, how could these people appear here? One had to know that the abandoned continent had been sealed off by the two families from the very beginning. Although these people were strong, it was not to the extent that they could sneak into the abandoned continent without anyone noticing. Moreover, even if they could do it, why would they do it? It was clear that they had long known about the anomaly in the abandoned continent and had come for something in the heart of the continent. The Lian clan and the Chu clan were lucky enough to discover traces of the heavenly Luo grass. It was probably a mistake on their part. However, for some unknown reason, these people did not kill the two families to silence them. Instead, they allowed them to pass on the information. However, because of these people's misdirection, the two families misjudged the situation on this abandoned continent and made an agreement for the younger generation to fight for it. When Lian Xingqian's words came out, Zhan Beiyue, who was the leader, suddenly looked up at him and said in a deep voice, "You are not bad, quite smart." Although his mouth was full of praise, his eyes were not as moved as when he was praising Luo Qingtong. Obviously, he was just saying it casually. The heart of the continent isn't something your two families can covet. Help us kill this spirit beast and enter the heart of the continent, and I can guarantee that you won't die. Zhan Beiyue's expression was indifferent. There was no fluctuation or change in his gaze as he looked at Lian Xingqian and the others. Chapter 2689. This young man, Zhan Beiyue, and the others watched as the Flying Star Lian family and the Tianfeng Chu family entered the cave world where the heart of the continent was located. The extraordinary ability that Luo Qingtong displayed during this process surprised him very much. Not only did she decisively guide the decaying spirit energy into the cave, but also the ability of the silk thread that she revealed when attacking the heart of the continent surprised him very much. He originally thought that the silk thread ability that Luo Qingtong displayed when she saved Chu Lingfeng was already at her strongest state. He didn't expect that Luo Qingtong didn't use her full strength at that time. The ability to penetrate and control those spirit beasts' silk threads and the protective ability that she displayed to envelop the Tianfeng Chu family and the Flying Star Lian family were both very amazing. This young man was really too rare. Unfortunately, he had a mission this time and couldn't make an invitation. Therefore, although Zhan Beiyue's gaze was fixed on Luo Qingtong, he didn't move or speak at all. The middle-aged man beside him, the one who praised Luo Qingtong in front of Zhan Beiyue, looked at Luo Qingtong with a chuckle and said, "You are a strange young man. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have shown up. Let's not beat around the bush. This spirit beast is not something that you can deal with. We can show ourselves after you're all dead. We can still deal with this spirit beast. But we will inevitably suffer some losses. Now we show up. You can block the other spirit beasts for us and help us enter the heart of the continent. You can take the Tianluo grass inside. How about it?" The middle-aged man's voice carried a smile. However, except for when he faced Luo Qingtong, there was a trace of surprise and admiration in his eyes. When he looked at the others, there was no fluctuation in his gaze. Obviously, the existence of Lian Xingqian and the others was not worth mentioning at all to them. Whether the other party agreed or not, it didn't matter to them. It was only because Luo Qingtong's ability was too strange that they had taken a fancy to her. That was why they had shown themselves. Otherwise, they wouldn't care about the lives of Lian Xing and the others. Except for Luo Qingtong, the rest of the people present were not worth mentioning. Of course, that was because they couldn't see through Yi Qianxian and the others' strength. Otherwise, they wouldn't think so. The middle-aged man was full of smiles. His words were much gentler than Zhan Beiyue's. However, the meaning behind his words still made the expressions of the people from the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan turn ugly. Which one of them wasn't a genius from their respective star fields? Both the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan were among the top clans in the 6-star sector. But at this moment, in front of Zhan Beiyue and the others, they were not taken seriously at all. On the contrary, Luo Qingtong, a small mercenary, had received the other party's appreciation and help. These people made it very clear that if it hadn't been for Luo Qingtong, they wouldn't have shown themselves at all. If that were the case, then the only path left for them to face the spirit beast would be death. Everyone felt an indescribable feeling in their hearts. Before this, who would have thought that this would be the outcome? Luo Qingtong, an ordinary mercenary, had become their savior. Chapter 2690. especially Chu Yucheng and the others. They'd looked down on Luo Qingtong and despised her before, but now, they'd been slapped in the face. The middle-aged man's words were like a slap to their faces, causing them to lose all face. Originally, they'd only been able to suppress Luo Qingtong because of their status. Now that Zhang Beiyue and the others had appeared, they'd instantly crushed their status as disciples of the Tianfeng Chu clan to the ground. The other party's strength wasn't common even in a 4-star region. It was very likely that he was a disciple of a force above a 3-star region. Even such a person treated Luo Qingtong differently. Compared to Luo Qingtong, what was there to be superior about? Chu Yucheng and the others had ugly expressions, but Luo Qingtong hadn't heard what Zhang Beiyue and the others had said. At this moment, she was wholeheartedly treating Yi Qianxian. Her current strength couldn't be compared to the past. In the past, Luo Qingtong's strength had been low, but when she'd treated Yi Qianxian's meridians, she'd always caused a huge commotion. But now, her strength had risen to almost the level of the exalted realm. Moreover, in the series of battles just now, her bottleneck to the exalted realm had clearly loosened. Now that he was treating Yi Qianren, he didn't say anything. At the same time, her strength was constantly rushing towards the exalted realm. Luo Qingtong had a feeling that if she could break through to the exalted realm this time, it wouldn't be as simple as the initial exalted realm or the crimson exalted realm. It was very likely that she'd be able to break through to the orange exalted realm, or even the yellow exalted realm. Luo Qingtong had already accumulated enough strength, but for some reason, she hadn't been able to break through. If she could break through now, she'd definitely be able to break through several levels in one go. Thus, she focused on treating Yi Qianxian's injuries. She'd already closed off her perception of the outside world to prevent herself from being distracted. In her opinion, no matter how ferocious the spirit beast was, Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others should be able to stop it. She took advantage of this time to quickly treat Yi Qianxian. She wanted to prevent this man from overdoing it and damaging the strength of his meridians. The strength of Yi Qianxian's meridians was even more miserable than when Luo Qingtong had first met him. It was already close to single digits, and only a few pitiful numbers were left hanging there. Luo Qingtong didn't know how this man could be so nonchalant. One had to know that this number represented the strength of Yi Qianxian's meridians. It was as brittle as a piece of paper. This man actually dared to act so recklessly just now. How infuriating. Luo Qingtong's strength was silently treating Yi Qianxian's meridians. At the same time, she was using the man's strength to break through the bottleneck of the exalted realm. How could she have the time to care about what was going on outside at this critical moment? Yi Qianxian also turned a deaf ear to what was going on outside in order to fully cooperate with her. The two of them didn't speak, but Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others couldn't let anyone see anything wrong with them. A group of people surrounded Luo Qingtong and Yi Qianxian so that no one could see what they were doing inside. Then, one of them said in a low voice, "Young Master Shao Qi said it's okay. But she's a little tired now. Controlling the threads just now was very taxing on her." Chapter 2691. When Feng Yu and the others spoke, Zhang Beiyue and the others immediately focused their attention on them. With one look, they realized that they were different from the top 9th-level human martial realm guards beside Lian Xingchen and the others. They were not affected by the spirit beast's power. Obviously, they were not ordinary 9th-level human martial realm experts. Their strength was far more tyrannical than ordinary 9th-level human martial realm experts. Okay. Zhang Beiyue nodded. They had seen Luo Qingtong's consumption just now and didn't feel that there was anything wrong with Bei Qing and Feng Yu's words. Besides, they came out this time to borrow Luo Qingtong's ability to contain the large number of spirit beasts. Otherwise, when they were dealing with the mutated spirit beast, those low-level spirit beasts would continuously rush up and they would be distracted. At that time, it was very likely that they would be injured. If not, they wouldn't have shown up. After all, if they could, they didn't want to show up in front of people. That ancient divine object was too important. Even if they got it, they had to be careful. Otherwise, it would inevitably cause trouble for the Zhan family. But at this moment, the mutated spirit beast's strength was somewhat beyond their expectations. In order to prevent possible accidents, they could only show up and let Luo Qingtong and the others help. Now that Luo Qingtong's consumption was too great, Bei Qing and Feng Yu's help was the same. However, the other party's strength was so tyrannical that they were obviously not from the 6-star region. Could it be that they were from the 5-star region or even the 4-star region? Zhan Beiyue's eyes narrowed slightly. Although he was puzzled, he didn't care very much. With the strength of their group, so what if Bei Qing and Feng Yu's strength were far beyond the ordinary 9th-level human martial realm? The strength of the human martial realm and the earth martial realm were not at the same level. In the end, the human martial realm did not transcend the human level. And the earth martial realm had already reached the level of heaven and earth. Heaven, earth, and human, these 3 realms were divided. Just from the meaning of these 3 words, one could already know the level of these 3 realms. There was a difference between heaven and earth, and between heaven and earth and humans. Zhan Beiyue was not worried that Bei Qing and Feng Yu would pose any threat to them. Then let's do it. As he spoke, he rose to his feet and charged towards the spirit beast in front of him. When Zhan Beiyue and the others appeared, the spirit beast was blocked in midair by the net of auras that were intertwined around them. At this moment, it was howling madly as it charged towards the net formed by the Zhan family members. At this time, Zhan Beiyue appeared in front of it, which was exactly what it wanted. It immediately attacked Zhan Beiyue with a claw. When the spirit beast pounced on Zhan Beiyue, the people of the Zhan family also moved. With a boom, he appeared beside Zhan Beiyue and fought against the huge mutated spirit beast with him. When Bei Qing and Feng Yu attacked Zhan Beiyue and the others, they also attacked together with the people from the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan to stop the other spirit beasts that were attacking from all directions. When they attacked, there was an explosion in Luo Qingtong's body. Then, the aura in her body rose to the level of the Venerate realm with a boom. Chapter 2692. Her strength was rising rapidly. Early Exalted Realm, Red Revered Realm, 1st level, 2nd level, 3rd level, Luo Qingtong's strength wasn't too great. At this time, everyone was immersed in the battle with the spirit beasts. The changes and sounds within her body weren't obvious, so no one noticed them. Furthermore, no one noticed that the aura in her body was rising at an extremely shocking speed. This was all of the strength that Luo Qingtong had accumulated during this time as well as Yi Qianxian's strength and aura. To her, this man's aura was like a fish in water. It fused into her body without any hindrance, coordinating with her strength and comprehension of laws, constantly raising her strength. And during this process, Yi Qianxian's meridians were constantly being repaired. Originally, he was envied by the heavens. No matter what sort of heavenly treasure he used, it was only able to slow down the speed at which his meridians ruptured. But now, under the circulation of Luo Qingtong's aura, it was constantly being repaired and enhanced. 1%, 5%, 10%, Yi Qianxian's meridians were originally damaged to the point of no return because he had used all of his strength in his battle with the Sky Capital Emperor. But under the healing effects of Luo Qingtong's aura, the strength of his meridians was restored to 10%. This was the same level of strength that Yi Qianxian had in the true Spill continent. And at this time, the rate at which his meridians were being repaired didn't stop. Luo Qingtong's strength was no longer at the same level as before. With her strength, she could naturally restore Yi Qianxian's meridians to an even higher level. If the heavens want him to die, then I won't let him die. Let's see who can take my man's life from my hands. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold as she continued to enhance Yi Qianxian's meridians. The fact that Yi Qianren was heavily injured this time had truly agitated her. This man had a proud temperament. Luo Qingtong didn't want to force him to say things he didn't want to say. But at the thought of someone bullying her man when she was not around, Luo Qingtong's heart burned with anger. Only she could bully her man, didn't she know that? If not for the fact that Luo Qingtong's strength was not enough, she would have wanted to restore the strength of Yi Qianqian's meridians. At that time, whoever dared to bully her man would be slapped to death. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, she immediately did her best to restore the strength of Yi Qianqian's meridians. At this moment, there was a loud boom. A loud explosion rang out, followed by a mournful and tragic howl of a beast. In the direction of Zhang Beiyue and the others. They formed a battle formation and directly attacked. Golden lightning formed in the sky, and with a bang, the huge mutated spirit beast was blasted away. The latter's body tumbled in the air, and finally smashed into the heart of the continent not far away. The huge spirit beast's body overflowed with blood, dyeing its fur and the ground red. A thunderous sword wound ran from its chest all the way to its tailbone, penetrating its abdomen and almost coming out of its back. The huge spirit beast lay on the ground, its body violently undulating, and then it stopped moving. Chapter 2693. They almost crashed into the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lien clan behind them. It was obvious that they had expended a lot of energy to launch this attack. Their faces were pale. Not only that, but a few of them were bleeding from the corners of their lips. "Alright, let's go." Zhang Beiyue wiped the blood from his lips and barely managed to calm the rolling air waves in his body. He was about to lead the Zhan clan into the heart of the continent. Suddenly, a voice came from behind them. It was a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Young Master Zhan, why are you in such a hurry to leave? I have to thank you for clearing all the obstacles for us along the way." Zhang Beiyue and the others froze when they heard this. Then, they turned around and looked at the bottom of the mountain not far away. There, a group of figures in blood-red robes appeared in front of everyone. The demonic moon sect. Zhang Beiyue and the others narrowed their eyes. They did not know why the demonic moon sect would appear here. Shouldn't they be seriously injured and unable to cause any more trouble? Zhang Beiyue and the others waited outside the hole in the heart of the continent for a long time. They were sure that the demonic moon sect would not be able to cause trouble. However, he did not expect that the demonic moon sect would suddenly appear right after he and the others killed the spirit beast. Not only that, but their strength. Zhang Beiyue and the others looked at the demonic moon sect's strength with a grave expression. The other party's strength had recovered. Not only that, but it had also improved compared to before. Zhang Beiyue and the others' hearts sank. They did not know how heavy it was. They had just dealt with the gigantic mutated spirit beast, and even though they had managed to knock it away with a single blow, they had still suffered quite a bit of damage from the attack as well. Not only that, but they had also used up a lot of their strength. Under such circumstances, it was very disadvantageous for them to face the demonic moon sect's people who had not lost any strength. What was going on? How could the demonic moon sect's people recover their strength? The medicinal pills here were completely useless. Zhang Beiyue and the others thought. They glanced and saw a black figure standing beside the demonic moon sect's people. The black figure stood beside the demonic moon sect's people and the leader of the demonic moon sect's people. Zhang Beiyue and the others' hearts skipped a beat when they saw that they were on equal footing. Their gazes were focused on the black figure. However, the figure was shrouded in a black robe from top to bottom. The shadow of the wide hood completely covered his face. So much that no one could see anything. Even if he raised his head slightly, no one could see what he looked like under the hood. "Who are you?" Zhang Beiyue looked at the black-robed man warily, his face cold. If he was not mistaken, this person's people's people. These people from the demonic moon sect really deserve to die. He stared coldly at the demonic moon sect members in front of him. Under the hood, Yu Mingqian's face was indifferent. The corner of his lips curled up, and his tone was indescribably casual. Most importantly, none of you will be able to escape today. Especially you, Xia Qi. Don't you think so? Chapter 2694. Yu Mingqian's words instantly attracted everyone's attention to Luo Qingtong. Because when Yu Mingqian said those words, her eyes were fixed on Luo Qingtong. Xia Qi. Someone felt that the name sounded familiar. Suddenly, he cried out in surprise. Isn't that the name that has been spreading around Heavenly Wind Inscription City recently? Xia Qi, who came out of nowhere, claimed to be the disciple of the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord, Song Cheng's disciple. However, the crowd guessed that this was most likely her way of covering up her actions. In Heavenly Wind Inscription City, she defeated the people of Lengyu Inscription City and took back the Inscription Tower for the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City. Not only that, it was said that she also cured the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord and restored the latter's destroyed life inscription mark. It was also because of this that the people of Lengyu Inscription City did not succeed in their plot to kill the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord. And there was also a rumor that this Xia Qi was a battle's sole master. One had to know that Xia Qi was only a young man. Not only that, it was said that his appearance was exceptionally beautiful and evil, making people feel bewitched when they looked at him. But at this moment, everyone looked at the ugly and ferocious birthmark on Luo Qingtong's face and couldn't see how he was handsome. Was this a joke? How could this Luo Xiaoqi be that evil spirit? Everyone's eyes were filled with disbelief. As for Chu Ku, and the others, they couldn't help but cry out. How is this possible? How could she be that Xia Qi? This ugly monster. Chu Ku's face was filled with excitement. She also knew about Xia Qi. In her heart, she had thought that if she had the chance in the future, she would definitely go and see if this Xia Qi was as outstanding and handsome as the rumors said. But who would have thought that Luo Xiaoqi was actually Xia Qi? Other than the fact that they both had the word Qi, how was she similar to Xia Qi? The birthmark on her face was even more disgusting. Chu Ku's voice was sharp. Yu Mingqian did not refute her. She only looked at Luo Qingtong indifferently. After the latter had broken through to the Venerable Realm and helped Yi Qianxian increase the strength of his meridians by 10%, he had already recovered his perception of the outside world. When Zhang Beiyue and the others killed that spirit beast, she was very clear about it. At this moment, seeing Yu Mingqian's gaze on her, Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. She didn't try to hide it. Same here. The corners of her lips curled up slightly. The smile on her lips was indescribably evil and indolent. It was naturally domineering. You people from the Central Inscription Association are also all-pervasive. Just like rats and bugs on the streets, don't you think so? You were even able to chase me all the way to this abandoned continent. The moment Luo Qingtong said that, everyone was shocked. Luo Qingtong's words were equivalent to admitting her identity. Was she really Xia Qi? Everyone looked at Luo Qingtong at this moment and found that she had changed all of a sudden. Her face was still the same, ferocious, terrifying, and ugly. But now, she was not as ordinary as before. If the previous Luo Xiaoqi was thrown into a crowd, it would be hard to find her. Then now, Luo Qingtong was like a self-emitting light source, making people unable to take their eyes off her. Even that ferocious and ugly birthmark did not damage her charm and temperament. Everyone looked at Luo Qingtong dumbfounded. They didn't know how she could change these two completely different temperaments so easily. How could a person become another person without any obstacles? And with the same face. Chapter 2695. Xiachi, it's useless to talk big. You should know that with your current lineup, you can't defeat us. As Yu Mingqian spoke, his gaze focused on Yi Qianxian. Until now, he was still full of fear and doubt about Yi Qianxian's strength. He sensed that the other party should be very strong. However, since Luo Qingtong and the others entered the cave, this man had not made a move. He was so worried about Luo Qingtong, so why didn't he make a move? There were two reasons. Either the other party's strength was not as strong as he thought, or the other party could not use his full strength for some reason. Yu Mingqian and the people of the demonic moon sect had been following them for a long time. He had used a special method to show Luo Qingtong and the others' movements in the water mirror, so he could see them clearly. Therefore, at this moment, he looked at Yi Qianxian with a very meaningful gaze. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly when she saw his gaze. She subconsciously blocked Yi Qianxian's figure. The man had not woken up yet. When Yu Mingqian spoke earlier, Luo Qingtong had already increased the strength of Yi Qianxian's meridians to more than 20%, which was close to 30% progress. This was the maximum extent that Luo Qingtong could restore Yi Qianxian's meridians with her current strength. However, because Yi Qianxian's meridians had been maintained below 10% for a long time, it had not been increased to more than 10% for a long time. Therefore, when the meridians suddenly increased to 30%, the enormous and terrifying power that he had been suppressing in his body surged almost instantly and spread to Yi Qianxian's meridians. If he did not control it, the power in Yi Qianxian's body would be enough to break all the meridians that had just been repaired. Therefore, Yi Qianxian's mind was completely immersed in his body, guiding and unblocking the power. Waves of energy surged within his body. If anyone could see the level of power in his body, they would definitely be shocked by the power that had awakened in his body at this moment. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the power was enough to destroy the world. However, at this moment, they were like galloping horses that had been reined in, or like caged beasts. They were all confined within Yi Qianxian's body. No one outside would be able to see the truth. When Yu Mingqian saw Luo Qingtong blocking Yi Qianxian, her eyes flashed. Although he didn't know what happened to the other party, he could tell that he couldn't do anything now. That's good. This way, no one would be able to stop him from capturing Xiachi. Of course, even if the other party woke up, he might not be able to stop him. This time, in order to capture Luo Qingtong, Yu Mingqian had made a lot of preparations. The way he saw it, even if Yi Qianxian had some strength, it might not be enough in the face of his preparations. Now that the other party couldn't do anything, it was more advantageous for him. At least, he would have less trouble. And Luo Xiaoqi was destined to be his. Xiachi, come here. Otherwise, I'll kill them all and capture you. Believe me, this answer is not good for you. Yu Mingqian's face was indifferent. A pair of dark eyes stared at Luo Qingtong. At this moment, he was very calm. Chapter 2696. When he said that, the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lien clan were in an uproar. They looked in the direction of Yu Mingqian and the others in despair. They were all in the earth martial arts realm. Only a few of them were in the human martial arts realm. Some of them were in the human martial arts realm and were only in the 7th or 8th level. However, the other party's strength was enough to crush them. The Zhan family had just been through a round of exhaustion, while the Evil Moon sect was unharmed. More importantly, even if the Zhan family hadn't been exhausted, they wouldn't have saved them. All in all, they were in a situation of certain death. No matter what the outcome of the battle between the Zhan family and the Evil Moon sect was, they would all die if they were caught in it. And at this moment, the only thing that could save them from this hopeless situation was actually, Luo Xiaoqi, go with them. Chu Ku suddenly cried out at this moment. She looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong and gritted her teeth. They want you. Go with them. Maybe we can survive. When she said that, Chu Lingfeng, Chu Xiaofan, Guifeng, and the others all glared at her. Chu Ku, what nonsense are you spouting? Chu Xiaofan shouted at her. You're letting Luo Xiaoqi go with them just to survive? Do you know what they'll do to her? Chu Xiaofan was furious. In terms of friendship, his relationship with Luo Qingtong was not as deep as Chu Lingfeng and Guifeng's relationship with Luo Qingtong. However, they had interacted with each other along the way. He admired Luo Qingtong's character and ability. Moreover, how many times had Luo Qingtong saved them along the way? Even if he didn't know Luo Qingtong, he wouldn't kick Luo Qingtong when she was down. Not to mention that Luo Qingtong had helped him so many times. After he spoke, Chu Lingfeng stared at Chu Ku, and coldly said, if she goes over, all of you can forget about living either. When Chu Lingfeng said this, his eyes were abnormally ruthless. He was like a wild beast, and Luo Qingtong was more important than the sky in his heart. If the Tianfeng Chu family agreed with Chu Ku, and sent Luo Qingtong over, he would kill them no matter what. Then, he would risk his life to rescue Luo Qingtong. He was willing to die. These people who harmed her, none of them should even think about escaping. Hearing this, Chu Ku's expression froze. She looked in Chu Lingfeng's direction and said angrily, Chu Lingfeng, are you crazy? Don't forget that you are a member of the Tianfeng Chu family. Luo Xiaoqi is just an outsider. Not only that, she hid her identity. Who knows what she is plotting by sneaking into our Tianfeng Chu family's team? You are going to attack us for an outsider. Do you still have a conscience? You ungrateful wretch. When she said this, Chu Lingfeng's expression didn't change. He looked coldly in Chu Ku's direction. You are the outsiders. For him, only his master, mother, and Su Yu were his family. You. Chu Ku was so angry that she trembled. At this moment, Chu Yufei's voice sounded. Young master. She looked at Chu Lingfeng and said slowly, I know you don't want to part with young master Xie Qi. But this time, they just want her to go over, not her life. Chapter 2697. If young master Xie Qi doesn't go over, we'll all die. Including you, young master. I believe that even if young master Xie Qi had to make a choice, she would still choose to go over. After all, she doesn't want anything to happen to you. Young master Xie Qi, what do you think? Chu Yufei's words were much wiser than Chu Ku's. She threw the question to Luo Qingtong. On the surface, it seemed that she wanted Luo Qingtong to make the choice. But in fact, if Luo Qingtong didn't agree, it would mean that she didn't care about Chu Lingfeng's life at all. In that case, what was the point of Luo Qingtong protecting her? Moreover, she pointed out that Luo Qingtong's life wasn't in danger, which immediately reduced the guilt of the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Lian clan to the lowest. What she meant was, look, Luo Xiaoqi doesn't care about our lives. We're just handing her over to the demonic moon sect. What's wrong with that? No matter how one looked at it, she was forcing Luo Qingtong to go over to Yumingqian's side to save their lives. Luo Qingtong looked at Chu Yufei indifferently. Chu Yufei was looking at her with her head slightly raised. The smile on her face was perfect, but the light in the depths of her eyes was unusually provocative and complacent. In Chu Yufei's opinion, Luo Qingtong had no choice at all. If she went over to Yumingqian's side, they might still live. But if Luo Qingtong didn't go over, they would all die. There was no need to think about how to choose between the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Lian clan. As for the Zhan clan, it was needless to say. Would they fight against the demonic moon sect just for Luo Xiaoqi? Chu Yufei was very happy in her heart. She was secretly delighted that she could finally suppress Luo Qingtong. Luo Xiaoqi's performance in their team just now was too dazzling. Chu Yucheng and Chu Ku had targeted her several times, but she had slapped them in the face. Chu Yufei didn't dare to act rashly. But now, she could finally see this person's misfortune. Chu Yufei felt an inexplicable sense of exaltation in her heart. She felt that she had finally found a way to vent all the grievances she had suffered from Luo Qingtong, as well as the indescribable jealousy and hatred. Luo Xiaoqi, you probably didn't expect to be so unlucky, did you? I don't care if you're Luo Xiaoqi or Xie Qi. You won't be able to escape now. As Chu Yufei thought about this, she felt very refreshed. However, she still maintained a calm and sincere expression as she looked at Luo Qingtong. His appearance was even somewhat sorrowful and pleading. Chu Yufei thought that her current appearance would definitely arouse the desolation in the hearts of the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan. After all, everyone wanted to live. After she spoke, the people of the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan became even more agitated. Chu Yufei, you. Chu Xiaofang's expression was thunderous. How could he not see Chu Yufei's intention? This woman wanted to retreat in order to advance. She wanted to force Luo Qingtong to side with Yu Mingqian for the sake of everyone. She was so scheming and ruthless. Beside him, Chu Jingyi also looked at Chu Yufei with an indifferent and cold expression. Chapter 2698. We don't agree to exchange Little Seven's life for ours. Gui Feng waved the Dragonslayer spear in his hand. The tip of the spear pointed downwards as it hummed faintly. His voice was sonorous and low. Our lives were saved by Little Seven previously. It doesn't matter if we die now. That's right. Hu Zhan, who was beside Gui Feng, shouted angrily, life and death are decreed by fate. Riches and honor are determined by the heavens. We, the Red Flame mercenary group, disdain using our companions and benefactors in exchange for our lives. Of course, some people who think they are from prestigious families and have noble status are an exception. I think they don't even know how to write the word shameless. Well said. When Hu Zhan said this, Ouyang Yingyu's incomparably enchanting laughter suddenly rang out charmingly. She walked up to Hu Zhan in a flirtatious manner. It was rare that she did not pinch his ear. Instead, she raised her hand and patted his face. Not bad. You've learned some literary skills. You've been reciting with the leader for a long time, haven't you? When she said this, she lifted her eyelids and looked at Chu Yufei, who was not far away. Her face was firm and resolute. She raised her small face and looked extremely innocent. She smiled charmingly and said, Miss Yufei's words are too profound. We don't understand. But what you mean is that Little Seven will go over there herself and save your lives, right? Why should she? Just because she saved your lives several times. Should she pay with her own life? The Tianfeng Chu family is indeed worthy of being the #1 family in the Tianfeng domain. You're the most thick-skinned. But vulgar mercenaries like us are different. Ouyang Yingyu giggled when she said this. Then, she said charmingly, we mercenaries only know one word, and that is kindness. Our lives don't need to be exchanged with Little Seven. That's right. Our lives don't need to be exchanged with Little Sevens. At this time, the other mercenaries also spoke up in unison and stood beside them. Old Chen and the others did not hesitate at all. Their lives were saved by Luo Qingtong in the Thousand Silkworms territory. Not to mention this meeting. If it weren't for Luo Qingtong's protection, who would care about the lives of these mercenaries? At that time, he would be lucky if the Tianfeng Chu family didn't use him as a shield. How could he survive? They would never force Luo Qingtong to go to Yu Mingqian's side. Almost all the mercenaries of the Heavenly Wind Mercenary City stood out. After they stepped forward, Lian Xing and the others also slowly stepped forward. We don't agree either. The man's voice was indifferent. However, the content of those words caused Chu Yufei's expression to abruptly change. She was originally mocking Gui Feng and the others for overestimating themselves in her heart. So what if they supported Luo Qingtong? As long as the Flying Star Lian clan and the Tianfeng Chu clan joined hands and handed Luo Qingtong over to the other side. If that was the case, they would not be able to turn the tide. However, just as she was thinking this, Lian Xingqian's words gave her a huge blow. How was this possible? How could he disregard the safety of the Flying Star Lian clan for Luo Xiaoqi? What kind of disaster was this Luo Xiaoqi? Chu Yufei's expression was one of disbelief. She looked in the direction of Lian Xingqian and the others. Chapter 2699. Young Master Lian. Don't you care about the Lian family of the Flying Star sector? And you? Are you going to let him make the decision? Chu Yufei bellowed at the Lian family of the Flying Star sector. However, Lian Xingqian's expression did not change at all. Thank you for your concern for the Lian family of the Flying Star sector, Miss Yufei. His voice was full of mockery. But I don't think that the decision is bad for the Lian family of the Flying Star sector. At the very least, we will be known as loyal people even if we die, won't we? You, on the other hand, are free to die if you want to be known as ungrateful people. The Lian family of the Flying Star sector will stay out of it. After he said that, Luo Qingtong chuckled. Young Master Lian, you are indeed wise. She looked at Chu Yufei and the rest of them, whose faces had turned extremely awful, and shook her head. He is playing you like monkeys. Didn't you notice? What the man said just now was that I would either go there myself, or he would kill all of you and capture me. There's no mention of me letting you go after I'm captured. Idiot. After Luo Qingtong said the last two words casually, Chu Yufei's face turned pale immediately. She looked at Luo Qingtong with an ugly and indescribable expression. Her mouth opened and closed, not knowing what to say. Yes. The man didn't say that he would let them go after Luo Qingtong was captured. Everything was just their conjecture. Was it true that Luo Qingtong was right, and that they would still be killed even if they handed over Luo Qingtong? Then, what kind of mistake had she made exactly? She was basically putting on a monkey show for other people to see. No wonder Luo Xiaoqi said that they were being played like monkeys. Chu Yufei's face was awful. But Luo Qingtong didn't give up giving her the final blow. If I were you, I'd rather die with you than hand me over. After all, it is me that he wants. As long as I'm here, you'll still have room to resist. Handing me over? Do you think you're not dying fast enough? Luo Qingtong sneered. She had originally intended to ignore Chu Yufei, but the other party was so stupid that she couldn't stand it anymore. How much did the other party want her to be unlucky? She couldn't even see through this little trick, yet she still felt very proud of herself and wanted to provoke her. Little did she know that in front of Luo Qingtong, she was just like a clown who was fooling around without realizing it. Luo Qingtong's word struck Chu Yufei like a bolt from the blue. She had always thought that she was more scheming than others. But at this moment, because she was eager to Luo Qingtong's bad luck, she actually didn't see through Yu Mingqian's intentions. Now that Luo Qingtong had ridiculed her, the blow to her was worse than death. Her pride and arrogance were all trampled under Luo Qingtong's feet in an instant. Chu Yufei felt dizzy in her heart. Just as she was about to faint, Yu Mingqian's chuckling voice rang out. That's indeed the case. He had indeed intentionally led the Tianfeng Chu family and the Lian family to make a move on Luo Qingtong. This way, he would be able to deal with the Zhan family with all his strength. But since he had already seen through it, then, I can only create another good show. At this moment, his voice suddenly became cold and sinister. Chapter 2700. As his voice rang out, the evil Moon Sect members behind him leaped up in an instant and rushed towards Luo Qingtong and the Zhan family. These evil Moon Sect members had long been controlled by Yuming Qian using a unique method. At this moment, they didn't dare to disobey his orders. Seeing their figures rushing over, Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed. Then, she said to Bei Qing, Feng Yu, and the others, protect Qian Ren later. Don't let him get hurt. I have my own way. As she spoke, she suddenly raised her voice and said to the Zhan family members not far away, young Master Zhan. How about we make a deal? You guys protect the people on my side. I'll help you recover your strength and injuries. As soon as Luo Qingtong's words came out, the Zhan family members, who had been trying to recover their strength, immediately looked at her. Zhan Beiyu's eyes were directly fixed on her. Are you telling the truth? His voice was cold, but there was a hint of eagerness in it. Zhan Beiyu and the others had been ambushed by Yuming Qian and were obviously at a disadvantage. They had even thought about whether to capture Luo Qingtong in their hands to test how much Yuming Qian cared about Luo Qingtong. If they cared enough, they might be able to find a chance. However, before they could carry out this action, Luo Qingtong's voice rang out. Zhan Beiyu's gaze was deep. He didn't know if the young man had seen through their plans, so he deliberately spoke like this. In fact, this was the case. Luo Qingtong had indeed seen through the Zhan family's plans. In other words, as long as the Zhan family members weren't stupid, after discovering that Yuming Qian wanted to capture her, they would think of using her as a shield. After all, whether it was useful or not, they had to try before they knew. This was also one of Yuming Qian's schemes. He was such a smart person. How could he casually reveal that he wanted to capture Luo Qingtong? Naturally, Luo Qingtong was targeted by the people of the Tianfeng Chu clan, the Lian clan, and the Zhan clan. As long as the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan attacked Luo Qingtong, he would be able to deal with the Zhan clan with all his strength. After killing them, he could obtain the ancient god artifact and capture Luo Qingtong. And if the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Flying Star Lian clan didn't make a move, then the Zhan clan would make a move on Luo Qingtong in order to get rid of their disadvantage. At that time, the Tianfeng Chu clan and the Lian clan of Flying Star would definitely fight against them for Luo Qingtong. At that time, Yuming Quan would naturally be able to easily seize the opportunity to exterminate the Zhan family. If both sides didn't make a move, then it wouldn't matter. At worst, he would spend some effort to kill the Zhan family members. Luo Qingtong and the others still wouldn't be able to escape from his grasp. Therefore, no matter how one looked at it, revealing Luo Qingtong's identity wouldn't affect Yuming Quan at all. On the contrary, if the Tianfeng Chu clan, the Lian clan, and the Zhan clan made a move, it would be more advantageous for him. But at this moment, Luo Qingtong's words broke this advantage. As long as Luo Qingtong could restore the strength and injuries of the Zhan family members, especially their injuries, as long as they could recover, then, Yuming Quan's advantage would no longer exist. Yuming Quan's eyes suddenly narrowed when he heard this. Chapter 2701. Eat. Her voice was concise and to the point. Zhan Beiyue did not hesitate too much and swallowed the elixir directly. Boom! The aura around him suddenly changed. The power that he had lost before was replenished in an instant. Not only that, the injuries caused by dealing with the spirit beast were also greatly eased and healed. It's useful. The pale look on his face recovered slightly as he spoke to the Zhan family members around him. Then he looked at Luo Qingtong with a deep gaze. Deal. This young man was probably the most bizarre young man he had ever seen. This kind of pill that could be used in the abandoned continent was also extremely precious to them. Zhan Beiyue, as the young master of the Great Heaven region, might not even be able to come into contact with this kind of pill. Luo Qingtong, this weak youth, took it out at once. Thinking of what Yu Mingxian mentioned before, Luo Qingtong's name was Xie Qi, and this was just an alias. Zhang Beiyue's eyes darkened slightly as he remembered this name in his heart. He wasn't from the Heavenly Wind region, nor was he from the Six-Star region. Naturally, he didn't know about Luo Qingtong. But this didn't prevent him from investigating in the future. As long as he could successfully leave here today. Zhang Beiyue's words came out, and in an instant, Luo Qingtong nodded. She raised her hand and threw dozens of bottles of pills to them. These pills were all prepared by Luo Qingtong when she was in the Heavenly Wind mercenary city. Except for Chu Lingfeng, who used some before, Luo Qingtong didn't touch the rest. It just so happened that they came in handy. Boom! After Zhang Beiyue and the others took the pills given by Luo Qingtong, those with lighter injuries recovered their strength almost instantly. As for those with more serious injuries, they recovered their strength after taking a few more pills. This was also because Luo Qingtong was an alchemist, and there were many kinds of pills that she refined. If some people couldn't be cured after taking a pill, they could just take another pill. In any case, Luo Qingtong had refined a lot of medicinal pills with the same effect. Moreover, the types of pills were not the same. This was because the same type of pill could not be stacked if taken consecutively within a certain period of time. He had to wait for a period of time. And in this abandoned continent, the elixir pills that Luo Qingtong refined were only a tenth of the medicinal effect. Therefore, one elixir pill was definitely not enough for a seriously injured person. One had to take different types of medicinal pills with similar effects. However, the healing elixir that Luo Qingtong took out was exactly like this. Different types, but the effects were the same. When Zhang Beiyue and the others held it in their hands, they were still very surprised. Especially Zhang Beiyue. For an ordinary person to be able to take out one of these pills, it would already be incredible. Luo Qingtong took out a lot of them. Could it be that she had discovered the ruins of some powerful alchemist? They guessed so in their hearts, but the speed at which they took the pills was not slow at all. Boom! Their figures met the people of the Evil Moon Sect who were rushing in front of them. The strength of Zhang Beiyue and the others was not inferior to the people of the Evil Moon Sect. In fact, they were even stronger than them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have seriously injured the people of the Evil Moon Sect. If the people of the Lian family and the Chu family hadn't arrived and disrupted their plans, they would have wiped out the people of the Evil Moon Sect. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.